to what's the security of the financial sector. Then we're going to look at the categories of what constitutes the insider threats. So there are three major categories. Now, it could be from the aspect of compromise. Another aspect could be negligence. Another aspect could be for a malicious purpose. Now, we'll say compromise in terms of insider threat. We're looking at threat actors who have stolen or legitimate employee credentials to pose as authorized users. For example, a staff that have resigned from an organization whose profile have not been removed from the system, or even an existing staff whose credentials was compromised, he or she was not aware. Those are things that could lead to insider threats. Now, these are what issues of relate to what compromise. We're talking about negligence. Maybe an employee without security awareness, probably, for example, when creating a user, he was not properly taught on how to assign privileges and rights. He just created a user and assigned an administrative privilege to that account. Or, for example, you're supposed to disable a user. He's not disabled. Those are what insider threats that are a result of what negligence. Then we look at malicious purpose. These are bad actors, such as they could also be current or former employee. They could also be third parties. One of the greatest aspects of organizations are facing a major threat now is issue of third parties. Now, they play a role in terms of insider threats to organization, in the sense that during the course of their work, they have access to one or two information regarding the organization. As a result, it's a threat landscape that also need to be given the attention to. Now, we're talking about malicious purpose, or using their privilege to steal intellectual property or company data, or to fraud or sabotage or espionage, or to even probably blackmail the organization. All these are the various categories that make up what insider-related or threats. Now, from the statistics, it's very important we look at statistics. The average global cost of insider-related threat has increased from 31% over the last 2 years, from 8.7 million in 2018 to $11.45 million in 2020, meaning there have been a sporadic increase in terms of number and volume. And the reason for this is one, awareness is a major part of it. Then benefits. I heard the various speakers talking about we were asking about what is the reason for cybercrime and all of that. Financial benefit is also one of the major things. Employees who are disgruntled, probably they are not happy because of what they are being paid. When they see another staff being paid certain amount and they see what they are being paid, so those things also lead to insider-related threats. Now, 90% of this cost goes towards what? Containment, remediation, incident response, and investigation. Now, an average cost of an incident involving credential theft is between $1,700 Now, let's look at the statistics between negligence insider-related threats and malicious insider. Now, 62% as a result of what negligent insiders are most common and account for what majority of the insider-related threat. Negligence, meaning staff who are not aware. For example, someone doesn't know when a staff resigns, his access right need to be disabled. A staff is not supposed to be given a privilege beyond what he or she is supposed to do. Now, it just creates users without necessarily assigning privilege to them based on their roles and responsibility. All these are what negligence. They account for a major percentage of the insider-related threat. Now, 25% are negligence, which have to do with stolen credentials. These are that common where users compromise other users' credentials. Either they reset their password or probably they try to use their credential to log in. Then the last one is malicious that are responsible for 14%. Meaning, looking at these statistics, it gives us an overview that in addressing this kind of issue, for example, we'll get to the solution remediation, meaning more focus needs to be given to in terms of awareness and training, because we saw negligence on the part of the user and this high rate of insider-related threats. Now, insider-related threats are most often motivated by financial benefits that we've already established. So 45% of all employees, they are low, they save and otherwise exfiltrate work-related documents before leaving or after being dismissed from a job. This one is a major threat every organization is exposed to, except they have put some measures in place that will ensure that when your organization documents you use within the organization, you are unable to push it out. If not, most organizations they are exposed to do, staff who have worked with them before, even when they've left, they still have access to information that they were working with while they were with the previous organization. Now, if you look at this across the various sectors, you can see that we have the highest between the financial sector and the technological sector, which constitute about 47 to 49% in terms of the statistics for insider-related threat across the various sectors. Now, we're talking about insider-related threat. Now, which aspect does it affect? So let's look at our technological landscape in terms of our IT infrastructure. Now, it's not only the user question. Now, it cuts across, starting from the network. Within the network, there are insider-related threats. Within the server, there are insider-related. Within the application, even your endpoint, your database, your email, all of this. Now, even your firewall, all of this. I will tell the world, in each of these systems, there are privileged users. There are privileged users in each of these systems. Now, if they are not managed, they constitute internal security threats to every organization. Now, within your network, you start asking, who are the privileged users? Who are the super administrators? Now, who are those that have administrative right and access? Their right and access, is it based on least privilege, or you just give everybody administrator? Because you have 4 network persons, the 4 network persons are administrators. No, it shouldn't be so. All these constitute, they pose risk to your network. The same to also apply for the server, the same to apply for your application. So in each of these systems I've listed here, they are not limited to this. There must not be more than one super admin in each of these systems. Meaning, if other users need to carry out administrative purpose, it should be based on least privilege. Least privilege. So the super admin will have the super right to do and undo. So you can have other sub-admins that will carry out function. But what we've seen over the years in most organizations, they just create users and give them, if they need to carry out administrative privilege, just give them admin. And when they have that admin, they can do so many things. Now let's look at insider threat indicators. We're going to look at it from 2 different perspectives, from the digital and the behavioral perspective, then from the direct indicators and indirect indicators. Now, talk about data initiatives. Let's look at in terms of, how does it occur? And it occurs by obtaining large amounts of data, by sharing data with outsiders. Now, we know when you are not, every organization as a result of COVID, every organization, one way or the other, we've been exposed to the internet, either directly or indirectly. There's hardly any organization that is not visible on the internet, meaning your information is everywhere. The question is, how do you share this data? How do you share this information externally? Seeking or saving sensitive data. These are very key aspects. Request for access to sensitive data not related with their job function. All these are the aspects that relates to the digital aspect. Acting outside of their unique behavioral profile. Make use of unauthorized storage device. Now let's look at the behavioral aspects. Attempting to bypass security controls. This is always common. We're talking about internal. We're not talking about the external. These are internal. All these are related to internal. Now, frequently in the office during off hours, their staff, they will not work during the normal working time of 8 to 5. They always want to carry out their work from 6. They always want to be in the office during the weekend. All those are indicators of likely insider-related threat. Because during that time they have enough time to carry out the things they want to do. So all these are indicators. Like some organization, there are some restrictions you place on your network to say you have what called work hours between 8 and 5. Outside those days, you cannot log into the system. So if you need to log in, there will be a prior approval from your superior. All these are to guide against insider-related threats. Now, displaying disgruntled behavior. violating corporate policies, even those unrelated to security, discussing resignation or looking for new career opportunities, acting withdrawn or unusual. All these are the various indicators. Let's look at it from the direct indicators and indirect. Now, data exfiltration, unauthorized use of external system, USB, tablet. All these are very key. That's what every organization these days from the domain they ensure that USB is disabled. Why? Is to guide against insider related threats. First, aside those the threats that are related that are external. Now, abnormal corporate network activities such as calling, downloading of internal portals, sharing data with us, as unusual data requests. You see a particular staff sending certain information out to a particular email or a particular account on a regular basis. The question is, does his or her work function relate to what is being sent? All these are indicators. Indirect, workspace outside job hours, attempt to access privileged areas, compliance of unethical or hostile behavior, violation of corporate policy and disgusting. All these are various indicators, both from the direct and data behavioral aspect. Now let's look at I talked so much about we look at the various insider related threats. Now, the core thing around all what we say is privileged access. Now, one of the ways in mitigating most of those insider related threats is the use of a privileged access management system. Now we'll look at the various threats. There are three key things I will be focusing on is in managing this threat. It's not just from the system perspective. We'll look at it from the policy, we'll look at it from the process, we'll look at it from the people. Now, from the policy, as an organization, do you have a policy that speaks around is a privileged user or administrative user, how they should be created, how they should be managed, if there are requests? There should be a policy around it. In that policy, where we define, okay, for every privileged user, they must create them with a defined name. Creating a user with admin is not allowed. Because why? When there's an incident, you will not be able to determine who carried out that action. So if it must be done, that admin should be tied to a user account. There's nothing like staff 1 or ABC or staff 2. No. If you are a staff 2, if you need to carry that admin privilege should be assigned to that staff account. Now we're going to look at privileged access management policy. How it helps to prevent insider attack. One, it helps you to keep credential of your most sensitive assets in a central secure vault. For example, part of the policy will be you must maintain a privileged access user list templates. For example, all your systems, you should have all your systems listed. Each of these your system, who are the privileged access users, you should know. Then you should know the assets that they have and their username. So when there's an issue, you are able to carry out proper auditing. Now you should limit privileged access to sensitive information. Meaning when you are granting access, should be based on least privilege. Now remove local admin. This one is very, very important. Where we will add system to the domain, we will have some endpoint that are joined to the domain. Now there are local admins within those systems. Those local admins must be disabled. If not, they can still use those local admin account to create to create malicious attack from that endpoint. So removing all local admin rights from all users' workstation and implement a policy to block malicious application. Then increase accountability and oversight with session monitoring and recording. This one is very, very key. Then you can implement a workflow approval for privileged account creation, such that the admin in the IT cannot just create a user and assign any administrative privilege user to that user without it going through a workflow. Meaning, when a workflow can define a workflow that when it creates it goes to the workflow of, let's say, the auditor or your internal control or security team, who verify that which user has been created, what access is being given. Based on that, we validate that this request is valid or not. Then you should be able to monitor and log privileged access user to sensitive information on that and ensure that all users have adequate training. This one is very key to prevent unintentional mistake. So let's look at the circle. Let's look at it from the risk perspective, internal security threats risk. Now, first, we'll look at it from employee theft and sabotage. These are the kind of risk that your internal security threats, what it can pose to an organization. There are reputational risk, loss of income, security breaches, business disruption, disclosure of sensitive information, unauthorized access. All of these are the kind of risks that internal security threat poses to the organization. Reputation means, for example, when they get that information, they can start spreading fake information about the organization, and that puts the reputation of the organization at risk. Loss of income, when there are breaches. We heard of one that happened recently in Nigeria of a major institution, and that crime was well over some millions. And what was the reason? It was majorly around what internal security threats, where the internal user has what escalated privilege, and that privilege or that account was not being monitored or reviewed. That person was able to do so many things with it. Security breaches, business disruption. This has also affected the business itself. Now, how do we prevent it? So we're going to look at it from four broad perspectives, and all these perspectives I have there, they are defined into three main areas. Looking at the process, people, and what technology. Now we're talking about process. Yeah, first we have here, we're looking at awareness and training. We're talking about the risk assessment. Now you need to be able to assess all your assets internally, all your controls internally, and begin to identify which of these ones, what are the insider related threats that are related to each of these various assets, starting from your server, who has access to this server, from the network, who has access to the network, who are the privileged users in each of these, because the privileged users are the ones that pose the highest risk in terms of insider related threats. Now we need to look at how you need to implement security controls around them. Here I'm talking about PAM, privileged access management solution. There are solutions that you can use so that all your privileged access across all your systems are being monitored. Anytime a privileged access is being granted, it flags and alerts. They need to have something like a SOC in place, security operations center, where we need to monitor activities of what users do across the various IT infrastructure, where you have for your NAC, your network access control, such that user is granted access based on what has been defined. They can need to see all the access every user has on the network. They need to audit all of these various internal related security threats that has been identified. Auditing tools can come in, the automated auditing tools that can be used, and also manually auditing them too. So, okay, go to the system, review those logs if you don't have something like a SOC in place or you don't have auditing tools. All these are very key in preventing insider related threats. In conclusion, when we talk about cybercrime and banking in the financial sector, we tend to focus on external threats, but often organizational insider threats are more likely to be the most source of breach. This is very, very true. Because what we've seen over the years, most of the threats that have been perpetrated, majority are insider-related threats. Only very few are external. So in fact, if you can say insider threat pose a greater risk than external threats, as your employee already know where your company crown jewels are. This is very important. A staff that have worked in the IT department, he knows the assets that are the crown jewel. So he knows the various things around, he knows the network architecture, he knows the various privileges, he understands how the system, when he leaves, for example, he knows where to launch an attack to. So these crown jewels could include the assets that drive cash flow. So insider tends to know what exactly resides on the network and how to gain access to them. This is very true for the purpose of what? Of theft. So how do you tackle this problem of insider threat? The solution is that it must be tackled from two angles, both culturally, by educating your users, and what? Technologically. Very, very important. You don't just put the technology, but you also need to educate the users how they should create users, how they should monitor access, how they should review, what should be done. When a user staff leave, what should be done, revoking of all of this is very, very key. By putting further control, restriction, and monitoring in place on your users. You also need to monitor the users for their own benefit and that of the organization they work for. So user lock is also an enterprise security software that also control and secure networks. This is very important. When users try to access, or probably when a privileged account is assigned to a user or having some systems, the first thing you do, if it's not approved, that account is locked. All these are various controls. So privileged access user, like I mentioned, a PAM solution is the control and tracking of credentials of all your privileged access that have been granted whether the access is to sensitive data or for special vulnerability within a given system. Thank you very much. Any question? Thank you very much. I'm done.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Philip. Thank you so much. Okay, I think we have some questions here. Okay, I think Mr. Solomon wants to ask a question. Okay, so Mr. Solomon, please, you can ask your question now.
Okay.
Mr. Solomon?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, you can hear Mr. Solomon.
Okay, Mr. Philip, thank you for the presentation. It's such a wonderful presentation and very enlightening. Please, I want to find out from you, and I want you to explain to us, especially since we're dealing with your presentation centered towards around the financial institution. I want you to tell us, how did these criminals obtain bank information about customers, which they also use to defraud the customers? And I'm saying this because this is now becoming rampant in Nigeria. I have a friend's daughter who just turned 18 years, and the parents decided to open a new account for her and put a little amount for her there because she was to go to university. And suddenly, within some few days, she called the parents back and started crying that somebody called and told her that she was calling from the bank and started asking different information, knowing fully well that she's this is her first time of using the bank, using the ATM and all those things. So they were able to successfully defraud her, went with the amount in her account. So I want to find out how did this criminal obtain the bank information of the customers, whether this is linked to an insider too, and then what is being done in the financial arena to cut this? That's my question, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Solomon. That's a very, very good question. Now, that scenario, there are two perspectives to it. One, the issue of data privacy. If you look at recently, NISDA is becoming very, very stem on that. What could have led to that scenario is one. I mentioned something when I was talking about insider literature. The issue of third-party integration also poses a very great risk to institution. Let me give you an instance. If, for example, as an institution, right, I'm integrating to, let me say, a fintech or probably a provider of a service. Now, during the process of my integration, there's what we call API used for integration. There are certain information about the institution that are exposed to that third party. Now, what the third party is supposed to do is this. That's what we call the 7 principles of data privacy. Data minimization. So you are not supposed to expose every information of a customer externally when it is not needed. Let me give you one particular scenario. For example, someone wants to go and pay his NEPA bill. Enter his number. What I noticed in that system is this. It pulls out your phone number, your house address. Now, for that particular transaction, for example, that information is not relevant. During that process, for example, they're already exposing some information of that customer. Now, some of these people, they work on those platforms. I'm talking about standing, and I'll come to the internal aspect. They'll pick those information from those platforms such that they're able to gather the information from the various platforms, put it together, and begin to carry out what a phishing attack. Now, what would they do? Initiate a call. When the customer provides certain information, what happens? The attack becomes what? Successful. That is one aspect. Secondly, internally, there have been some cases where the information of customers are being leaked internally. But for that scenario, I think it is on a low side compared to where we have the issue of integration with third party, where we have a lot of data breaches occurring. So for that aspect, two things that is very important there is this. That is where the awareness is very key. The awareness is very key. You must not share your information with anybody, even if it's calling from the bank. That's one. Then secondly, for organization internally, how do they manage those people that are in charge of this kind of data? Is there something like a DLP in place that monitor every information you send out? There are some institutions, if you send out any information, you download some, you send it out through, as far as you're sending through the network, they're able to track what is being sent. So there are two perspectives. So it is, it could be connected to internal, it could also be what external, but majorly the highest provision of source data is what externally what's generated. And the reason for that is because a lot of organizations are beginning to integrate with third party, and that exposes them to a whole lot of data privacy issue. That is why we also say, in terms of integration, data privacy becomes a key aspect in terms of what information should be exposed. So we are integrating with a third party, for example. If, for example, all the information they need for that integration is name, phone number, you should not expose them to the customer details table, where there is BVN, where there is other information that is not relevant to what they want to do. And when that happens, because that table or that information is already exposed to them, probably the work they are doing is to pick out tariffy. In the course of other things, you may not know, they will have access to other information, and they can start leaking out your information to fraudsters. So those are the key aspects in that perspective. So it could be internal, it could also be external. Majorly is externally connected. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you, Mr. Philip. All right. We also have another question here. That's from Mr. Abubakar. He said, "What is your opinion on employee background check as a means of mitigating insider threats?" Let me take that again. What is your opinion on employee background check as a means of mitigating insider threats? Over to you.
Thank you very much. That question is very germane and very key. Now, if you look at recently, for some key positions, even within the organization, one of the things you are asked to do, background check is part of the requirements. So my opinion on this is very key. It's a very, very important aspect that must be done, particularly when that employee will be involved in the sensitive department. Let's say it's involved where certain information will be shared or sensitive information will be divulged. Background check should be done to check about the test of their character, their history of what they've done before, if they've been involved in any crime. This will give you an idea of who that person is. If, for example, he has worked in an organization before, during the point where he worked in that organization, there was something that happened that led to a breach. He now went to an organization, something similar. That's already giving you an idea that this person is either is directly involved or has a propensity for crime. So background check is very, very important in also mitigating insider-related threat. And if we are implementing certain framework that the likes of ISO 27001 is part of the requirements for implementation of ISO 27001, that you must carry out what background check is very, very key. Thank you very much for that question.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Philip. Okay, just in case anybody has another question to ask, you can send the question to the question and answer box. Okay, so while we look at that later, then you indicate who you are as the presentation continues. Thank you so much. All right, next on the line now is we have our second talk. Okay, and that will be taken by no other person but Mr. Musa Solomon. Okay, Mr. Musa Solomon. And why I quickly read the profile of Mr. Musa. Okay, Mr. Solomon Musa Odole is an accomplished IT expert with 2 decades of successful experience. He currently works with the Corporate Affairs Commission. Solomon is a fellow of the prestigious Nigeria Computer Society and holds numerous technology certification and membership. He has great knowledge and expertise of the technology industry. Also, he has championed numerous projects within and outside his agency. Prominent among them are the implementation of the National Identity Management Policies in Nigeria and National Societal Safety Net projects. Presently, he has just been appointed as the Coordinator, Ecosystem Coordination and Strategic Units, a World Bank ID for the projects under the Federal Government's Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy. All right, so you are welcome, Mr. Solomon. Over to you.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate the invitation. Can you give me the permission to share my screen? Okay, I want to believe we can see my screen now.
We can, thank you.
Yes, we can see.
Okay. Thank you for the introduction, and it's nice being in this summit. It's a wonderful thing to bring experts together to talk about cybersecurity, because it's one of the major things that is very, very essential, especially when it comes to a place where technology is applied. So this morning I'll be talking about human factors in information security, the insider threats. And the question is, who can you trust this day? I believe at the end of the presentation, we should be able to answer that question. Who can you trust? Whether a colleague in the office, the CEO of your organization, a friend, or even yourself. Can you trust yourself? So we'll be answering this question in this presentation. Thank God Mr. Philip has also helped in a greater way to touch some of the areas I would have loved to also dwell on. But in the course of the presentation, I'll quickly move to those parts that he has not talked about. So we're talking about the insider threat in information security. What is actually the information security? And according to the geeks4geeks.org, information security is basically the practice of preventing unauthorized access, use, disclosure, disruption, modification, inspection, recording, or destruction of information to ensure the following objectives: confidentiality, integrity, and availability are achieved. So the primary objective of information security is to ensure that these 3 things are achieved ultimately. That's the confidentiality of the information. And by confidentiality, it simply means information is not disclosed to unauthorized individual. For example, you see people disclosing their passwords. We have in some organizations where I worked before, somebody will tell you, I don't know what is happening. The system is not working. I don't know what is going on. And you ask him, okay, log on to it. Let's see what the issues are. And he's telling you, no, you can, you're an expert now. You can log on to it yourself. And he's giving you his password already. So we need to discourage staff from giving out passwords to unauthorized person. Even if the person is your boss, you are not expected to disclose this. So ensuring the confidentiality of the information is preserved, and also the integrity of the information. And by integrity, we means maintaining accuracy and completeness of data. For example, there are some organizations where employee has exited and yet they are still collecting salary. You now start to wonder, an employee exited from human resources, but in finance, in their payroll, the person is still collecting salary. So that shows that the information about that person lack integrity, because when an employee exits from human resource, the information in payroll or in finance should also indicate that he has exited. So we must ensure the integrity, consistency of the information. And then the last one there is the availability of the information, meaning that as at the time you need the information, you are able to get it. The information is actually available as at the point when the information is needed. I'll go to the next slide. Mr. Philip has talked a lot about insider threat. According to Homeland Security in US, they define an insider threat as the threat that an employee or a contractor will use his or her authorized access wittingly or unwittingly to do harm to the security of an organization. And insider threat is not concerned about coming from the internet to access the systems or the servers of the organization. He's talking about the threat behind the firewall, the threat behind the IDS, behind the intrusion detection system, the threat coming from an insider. And that's actually what we are here to address. And we should also know that, we all understand that there are literally three elements of successful organizational transformation. And that is the people, the process, and the technology. Unfortunately, most organizations dwell more on the process and the technology. We spend much money on the technology. We spend money on developing process, but we pay little or no attention to the people who drives all this. And that is actually the weakest link that we need to focus more. The people themselves are the greatest assets to the organization. At the same time, they can also be the greatest threats to the organization. In fact, they can bring down the whole organization in a jiffy. And Mr. Philip has talked about reasons why employees get into that. We have types of threat that has also been talked about, and we talked about the malicious insiders. Those are people who are inside the organization and they are bent on destroying the organization or working their way to access sensitive data of the organization with the intention of harming the organization. Those are the malicious insiders. But there are other class of insiders. Those are the inadvertent insiders. Those are the insiders that unintentionally cause damage to the organization. I'll go to the motives behind the internal insider threat. Mr. Philip has dwelt much on this too, the financial gain, because some people want to make money, so they have to do certain things, let out certain information, maybe to the opponent. And revenge by disgruntled staff, he has dwelt much on that. Curiosity too. Junior staff was curious of certain things, want to experiment things on live system. Also, there might be personal motive, accidental or human error, and some might be for political cause in order to deal with the opponents. Okay, I want to also give here the cyber attacks. And these are big organizations, and that shows that if big organizations like this, like Shopify, Amazon, Tesla, can be attacked from inside, any organization in the world can also be attacked. Like for the Shopify data breach, we're told that 2 members of the Shopify support team abused their access rights to obtain records of customers' transactions for a little under 200 merchants. The data contained in customers' personally identifiable information, they increased to 1.27% in Shopify's stock price. And that actually happened in 2020. The same thing happened to Amazon. There is an insider trading at Amazon where the senior have been disclosing Amazon's confidential financial data to family members so they could trade $1.4 million from that insider dealings. The same thing happened to Strategies healthcare attack and also even Twitter attack. In Twitter attack, the hackers conducted a chain of social engineering attack, that is actually the weakest link, and stole their credentials and gain access to the Twitter administrator tools also. Then the attackers posted scam messages on over 130 popular profiles and got up to $180,000 from Twitter users before the company cybersecurity team were able to seal the breach. The same thing happened to Tesla, though the Tesla one was an happy ending. A Tesla employee rejected a bribe of $1 million to install malware and cooperated with the FBI to help investigate the case. These are examples of insider attack, that the people inside are actually the one attacking and harming the organization. He has also talked about the cost of insider attack. There are direct costs, indirect costs, and lost opportunities too. I won't dwell more on this because Mr. Philip has talked about that. The same thing here. All I want to point out from here is that for these insider incidents, they are ever increasing. You can see from 2016 to 2019, you see that in 2016 it was 10.5. In 2019 it was 14.5. I want to believe that the insider is something. He also mentioned some things here. What are the indicators? Malicious insider threat indicators. Things that will show to you that, oh, you need to watch out for this if you want to prevent an insider threat. And the first one is hard working hours. You see some people, 3 a.m., they are logged onto the network from where you can't even explain. And they are doing one or two things. We have had series of such situations in the past where people will log on at the dead of the night. And because they have access and they are given access that they don't need, and there is nobody monitoring the access given to them, they are able to come in and cause a lot of havoc. The same thing with the volume of traffic. When you observe that more than usual, there is volume of traffic coming from a particular staff, then you need to actually investigate. And then apart from that, the type of activity too that the staff also engaged in on the network. And when somebody decides not to go on leave for 12 months, he kept on telling you, I love my job, I love my job. I think that might be the time to start investigating. What is under this? I love my job. For 12 months, no vacation. The same thing with lifestyle. And Mr. Philip talked about the background check. The lifestyle of the person suddenly changed. He started driving big cars. something that he couldn't afford, something that his salary could not take in, I think that there is need to start investigating such person. It might not be that it's actually defrauding the organization, but it is good to start that investigation to be sure that he's not defrauding the organization from the inside. Also, bringing the scenario on increased printer, our scanner page. You just observe the person is always printing and always printing. And then if the person is not happy with his appraisal, that might also indicate that he might attack on the inside. So to prevent this insider attack, and some of these things has also been mentioned before, but for emphasis sake, we need to protect the critical assets of the organization. Have biometrics in your data center. Ensure that it is only authorized people that enter into your data center. We have had a case like that in one organization. Somebody's friend followed him to his data center because he wanted to go and do things. And in the process of entering there and him doing some certain things, he's mistakenly pulled off the cable. And that became fatal because customers from outside were not able to log on. They were not able to access the resources that they needed to access into the behavior and the user's account. And I think he talked more about that. We can make use of a lot. There are a lot of tools outside there that can be made use of, like the user and event behavior analytics. And there are a lot of database monitoring tools that can be used to do that. And then we have enforced security policies. He talked about that the other time too, about security policies. There are a lot of organizations that have a lot of policies that are not being followed. A lot of policies that are just on paper. Policies are meant to be enforced and penalty for being the organization. And I think we need to take that also very, very serious. Instead of overlooking whatsoever people are doing, enforce the policy. Ensure everybody, whether big or small, in your organization, follow the policy and penalize if there is any breach. Apart from that, everybody provides security awareness, and I think that's what they're doing already. God is using CyberAcon' International to do also, to propagate the awareness to people know, to let the employees know. Let the employees know their passwords matters. They didn't know. And some of them, when they are giving password or creating password, they will use the name of their son, they will use the name of their daughter, they will combine the names of their son and daughters together to make their password. Or some of them will use their birth. The date of, we should let them know the consequence of all these things. And let them make that awareness everywhere to the people that there is Mr. Petro about that. There are party you talk to the disclosing customers' information. If you have a top party, you hire the top party. The customer don't know anything about that top party. It is between you and that top party. And so you should try to see how you can also monitor the contractor, monitor your vendors to try and ensure that information will not get from your vendor. Because I will not, as I will not hold you or your I will hold you responsible, because if you have done your own due diligence as an organization I'm dealing with, I shouldn't be having my information flag negative workplace. And this also is very, very important. You shouldn't all be work. Be interested in your staff. Listen to your staff. Get to understand them. Get to know them. Because there are certain employees that are going through a lot from home. I'm not saying you should prognose into their marital affairs or their home affairs, but At least when they are in the office, because if they are good, the organization is good. If they are happy, the organization is happy. If they are comfortable, the organization is. If you need to provide incentives to assist them, go ahead to make sure they are okay. And when you discover that employees are having issues among settle it right there to make sure no one is disgruntled. And then the next one is implement secure backup and recovery process. And I'm telling you, so many organizations, they have issues when it comes to this backup and recovery. Some organizations have backup. If you ask them, oh, we have a disaster recovery site. Oh, we have a backup. Oh, we have this. We have. Are you sure when they are all the data back to where they were before?
It's 11 o'clock.
It's always good to test. Test your backup. And the last one here is develop an insider response plan. What are the steps to be taken to mitigate that? I think I will stop right here to take a few questions. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Solomon. We really appreciate that session. Okay, I don't know. I don't know if anybody has a question. If you have a question, can you send your section into the question box? Okay. If you have a question, you can send your question to the question box as we continue with the presentation. So right about now, we go straight to our next speaker, okay, for our presentation. Sorry, please. All right, so sorry for that break in transmission. Okay, the next person to give us his presentation now is no other but Mr. Oluwaseyi Akinsesun. Okay, right about now, I'll quickly read out his profile to us. Okay, who is Mr. Seyi? Okay, Oluwaseyi Akinsesun is a seasoned cybersecurity professional with experience in both the IT and cybersecurity field. He has experience in many realms of the IT field, including software development, cyber risk management, framework, NIST documentation, security lifecycle, vulnerability scanning, audits, compliance, and power management. Also, he is committed to protecting the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the information systems of the organization he has worked with. Okay, so Mr. Seyi, please, over to you. Mr. Seyi, over to you. You can give your presentation now.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. I was thinking I was going to go later on, but what an insightful lecture from Mr. Phillips and Mr. Solomon. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
We can hear you. All right, then, Mr. Solomon, kindly mute your speaker.
All right. Okay, I've been talking. I didn't know that I was muted. Anyways, I said it's been a wonderful lecture from Mr. Phillips and Mr. Solomon. I've really learned a lot regarding insider threats. So please, can the host give me the right to share my screen? I was thinking.
Yes, you can share your screen now. All right. Okay.
So just confirm to me when you can see my screen.
Okay, we can see your screen now.
All right. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Phillips, and thank you so much, Mr. Solomon. And I'll be talking about the effective strategies to cope with cybercrime and in era of COVID-19 on business in Africa. And if we may, we could say it is post-COVID, right? Some countries are still in COVID. Luckily, I think we are in the post-COVID phase, right? We've talked, I've talked about myself. There's no reason to talk about myself again. So let me just give out some statistics, right? So that we know where we are going, and how we can come out from it. So effective strategies means that it's supposed to be high level, right? We are supposed to discuss practical things, ways in which we can survive cybercrime in the environment, in the cybersecurity landscape we find ourselves. So according to statistics, cyber attacks has been rated the 5th top rated risk in 2020 across public and private sectors. And you can try to imagine that the risk managers amongst us will understand there are so many risks that organizations face. And for cybercrime to come as the 5th top rated, considering regulatory risk, considering financial risk, considering operational risk, considering so many other important risks that has been years and long years before, cybercrime has gone from like 14th rated risk to 5th top rated risk just in 2020. And this is because of sorry, pardon me. And this is because of so many reasons, right? The COVID-19 has changed a lot of things, which include the way we work, the leisure, so many things. Many people now spend more time online, right? Even personally and experience, I found myself spending more time researching now, because we've been forced within that period of 6-7 months during the COVID-19 period inside to just discover ourselves. According to a widely accepted estimate also, cybercrime cost about $500 billion just within 2018 and 2020. Right. These are other global trends and happenings. Just within 2019, some organizations became unicorns. Who knew to Zoom in 2017, 2018? But because there was a need for collaboration, there was a need for connection with your staff during COVID-19 period, these organizations, Zoom, organizations like Pega, Zoom had about 200 million. That's about 535% increase just within 2019 and 2020, pre-COVID, December 2019 and the end of December 2020. Mobile money, then according to statistics again, that's the VMware analytics, the work from home increased about 70%, right? And with all this positive increase in organizations scaling, becoming big, like Zoom, merchants like Paga increasing their users by 200%, working from home increased by 17%. Most of the attacks now were COVID-19 themed, right? FQDN, that's fully qualified domain names, were now classified as high risk. For data breaches just in South African banks, 1.7 million. You can just go through all these statistics. So many things were positive as a result of COVID-19, right? But there were still so many things. Attacks increased. 148% increase in ransomware attacks. You can just imagine what that is. Just between February 2020 and March 2020. It's just unbelievable. This is just to give you an understanding of where we are. What is the risk that we are currently seeking on? And this thing is not going to go off anytime soon, right? Daily COVID-19 related phishing emails is still constantly happening. Some people just tell you, send you want something regarding trying to get COVID-19, your clearance. I recently got one just yesterday night. You click it, you download packets into your system, phishing packets into your system. That's the scenario that we found ourselves. So these are just important points to understand, that things are changing dynamically at a fast rate around us. And a wise man once said, I think that is Alvin Toffler, that the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those that cannot read or write, but those that cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. Meaning, in the situation we find ourselves, we have to be adaptable. The complexities of being socially distanced are deeper than we often imagine. People are getting depressed by the moment. People are trying to find any possible way to make money online. So we have to develop our adaptive response, and that could be fragile in any way. We have to design and engineer systems that will have a direct impact on the fluidity of our response, and the rate and sophistication of our cyber attacks as heightened with increased digital interaction. Those are the situations we find ourselves, right? This is another statistics, 2020, just within 2020. You can imagine things that are happening every 11 seconds in 20, and the projections, even though this is pessimistic, the projection is that a business will be attacked by ransomware every 11 seconds. In the US now, it is just mind-blowing. 20 billion global cost of ransomware. Those are crimes. Those are things that there's even cyber, even some countries are involved in cyber terrorism. Some countries are involved in cyber warfare, just to get people's data, exploit people's data, carry out identity theft, and just cause major havoc to people's economy and to countries' economy and individual personalities. So now to the core and to the bane of what we want to discuss about the effective strategies. These are going to be high level, right? And thankfully, previous speakers, Mr. Phillips, Mr. Solomon, talked so much on the importance of people when it comes to security awareness, right? It is just amongst the people, process, and technology. People is the most important, is the weakest link that you like often said, and people are the strongest link. Obviously, you cannot be a profitable organization without your people, and the same people can be what will bring the organization down. So it's a two-ended way situation. So number one strategy, and this just to create an enterprise strategy to prevent cybercrime, get your foundation right. Focus on your people, right from your physical and from your physical security, from your access control. Carry out constant employee security training and awareness, right? I don't want to belabor this because Mr. Phillips and Mr. Solomon has talked about it. Now, they have a basic antivirus. Even antiviruses are not even sufficient as it were now, right? It's people are migrating into EDRs that carry out endpoint detection and constant and proactive response for you. That's where the world is actually going now. Carrying out things, being proactive, like security orchestration, automation, and response system. That's what the world is moving to now. Then backups. These things is that we need to understand that security can never be 100%. It's just impossible, because countries, people, cyber threats are increasing daily. They are sophisticated. Most organizations cannot even afford the level of sophistication that these people are. But when we get our foundation right, the foundation of having all apparatus in confidentiality, integrity, the three tenets, availability, we can always get things right. And that's why backups come in. If you are attacked, do you have something to fall in? Do you have a secure data center? Can you confirm that the backup routines are actively deployed? Can you confirm that the backups can be effectively restored? Those are things that are important to create foundation for your security system. Firewalls and network access control, those are things too. Access control is actually the entrance. It's like your gate. If your gate is open wide, and perimeter security, even though people are saying it's archaic now, it is something that will always be your foundation. It's just like opening your door down and saying that you are secured. when you do not lock it, you just open it down. Those are what things, those are foundations to create for ourselves. So secondly, strategy 2, that is our layered approach in securing an enterprise, right? And this is very much important to me as we progress in cybersecurity. And because I'm someone that carry out a lot of research, I found out that because you can't be 100% in one layer of security. You have to do what we discuss as defense in depth. It addresses security vulnerability in all personnel, technology, operation, the process for all the life cycle. We all know about the OSI layers. If what I do in organizations that I work with is just to identify, okay, what are there is a basic OSI layer that we can follow: application, presentation, session, transport, network, data link, and all those physical aspects. Making sure there is a security control in every layer, so that, okay, if I'm attacked in my physical access, I'm not attacked in my network access. Before you can get access to my transport, my application layer is effectively secure. Those are things that we just have to do now, especially as financial institutions, because and this is just so apparent as we go about, because financial institutions deal with money. Everybody needs money. Everybody wants money. The economic situation of countries, even especially Nigeria, make people want to get money at all costs. And we are in an open source environment. The internet is open source. You can learn anything on YouTube as it is now. Just go to YouTube and type how to hack Finacle, how to hack FlexCube. Trust me, a lot of things will come out, step-by-step process in how to hack all those things. But when you have a defense in-depth, a layered approach system, it gets things done. It gets more secured as it were. And this is what it's all about: a zero trust architecture. That's its defense in-depth. You are secured in every aspect of your data plane, your control plane, every aspect. You have effective policy engines. You are following all the OWASP top 10 security when it comes to application security. Those are the things that help us to get secured. And strategy 3, and for this, the third strategy I would like to discuss, this one more very important thing that I researched upon, and because of my my postgraduate studies and on the key principles to unlocking value, right? Identity management systems. We just have to emphasize on that. And that's why, as much as people criticize the government, there are some things that if we get right, like, for example, this NIN, National Identification Numbers that you do, these things, if we can get the total number of Nigerians, if you can identify everybody, trust me, we can curb security, a cybercrime in its entirety, at least 80%. Look at countries like United States. They work on the principle of social security numbers. If you like, steal money from one person today, as long as they can identify you with your security, your social security number, they can identify, they can curb cybercrime, they can detect who you are, they can get you at any time. That's how important these things are. Let's focus on identity management systems. As organizations, that's for country aspect. As organizations scale, maybe in your 3rd and 5th year of cybersecurity transformation programs, make sure you have an identity. And as the organization scale, make sure you have an identity and management system. This is going to help you to curb security as a whole. Another thing is the appropriate and effective design by being context appropriate. All organizations are different, right? We need to be contextual when it comes to security. You cannot apply all principles on security. You have to be contextual, especially implementing new novel trends that are happening now. IoT, if you go and research on IoT, is one of the most unsecured architecture. And that is what is going to be reigning now, right? Because you just want to have everything at your hand. You want to be able to carry out things easily. You want to be able to control your house from your office. But you know what that causes? It causes a single point of failure. Once an attack you, I get access to everything you own. But organization, more novel trends, like we cannot just overestimate the importance of blockchain. If we get the principles of this blockchain helping us to ensure integrity of the entire system, helping us to prioritize end users' needs, and so many other things like that, and this will always help us. And finally, for this part, is just to build and sustain trust by leveraging on legal and operational foundation of trust and accountability. And that's where all these policies and frameworks come in. NDPR, GDPR, those things, if we well implemented, we are ensured that we are compliant with all these frameworks. Trust me, we can at least mitigate about 60% of PII exposures. That's the personal identifiable information exposures. So this is one of that. This is to bring everything together that we've been discussing so far. Security automation to scale. And these are strategies that we can do. Build a SOC. See, people say SOCs are a waste of money. At least, even if you don't have a SOC, make sure you engage MSSPs. Because information attacks are always constantly happening. How many people will you employ to resolve all this? Have an EDR, get a SIM, engage cloud security to ensure availability. Cloud security can help you with the unknown. 91% agree that utilizing cloud security helps you increase visibility into your network. When you are still dependent, I know most organizations are still dependent on on-premise systems, right? But gradually, for our CISOs that are here and security professionals, gradually transit into cloud. Because everything has its own merit and demerit. I understand the part that you can easily isolate when it comes to on-prem, but trust me, cloud security is the way to go. So this is just to give cybersecurity approach, and this is one thing that I developed during my research, and that is do a threat risk assessment, understand the current state and capability maturity assessment that you are currently. There are different frameworks you can use. Free, the NIST, and that was even a government framework that once you get these things right, identify, go do your threat and risk assessment, carry out your gap analysis. Now, you've identified where you are. Now, where do we want to be as an organization? Those are strategies that we just have to bring in place. I won't bore you with technicalities of this, right? But we need to understand this high-level understanding of get your future state vision and desired capabilities. Prioritize your strategic options. Get your roadmaps. And obviously, you can't do anything. I'm so glad that CEOs, C-level executives, CFOs are already understanding the importance of getting security in your infrastructure. Can never be overemphasized. And this is one thing I developed, so you can just go through it. I won't belabor this. If you want to carry out a cyber transformation program in your organization, typically a cybersecurity transformation program should take about 5 years, because cybersecurity is progressive. And the first 3 years is supposed to be to establish your foundational capabilities. And the objective of the next 2 years after that 3 years is to deliver enhanced automated security solutions. It's really not about buying tools, buying security solution as it were. Get where you are. Create the processes. Equip with the right people. Create the foundation, establish cyber defense center, get constant vulnerability management, ensure you constantly do your cyber security awareness, have a SIM implemented at the basics. Then you can now progress to other aspects like getting privileged access management, you advanced capabilities of implementing secure web gateways and other things like that. And this is something very important to me, to implementing a strategic institution-wide approach to cybersecurity. All these aspects are very important when we have to carry out the transformation strategy for cybersecurity. The human factor, the leadership and governance. This is the most important. Leadership and governance. You have to have your top management buy-in. If your CEO does not support your cybersecurity transformation strategy program, you are failed from the beginning, because nothing is going to work. No funds, no budgeting will happen. Human factors, information risk management, operations and technology, legal and compliance. You can see how important cybersecurity is connected in all these facets of a business. And finally, this is one part that is actually my expertise, and one thing I've always tried to promote. Actionable threat intelligence is the key to managing evolving cyber threats. Threat intelligence, and that's why I always ask, and that's why I'm so excited about this summit. Opportunity to exchange ideas. Do you know what I just learned from Mr. Philip and Mr. Solomon on this cyber threat? The fact that we can even classify people into different aspects, the malicious ones, people that are just negligent. You'll be able to even classify these people and tackle them as it were. That is what threat intelligence does for you. Do you have acquire external threat information? Make sure you're in constant contact with and that's where our network, a cybersecurity network, is very important. Get people understanding where we are, the challenges that you face. Share IOCs, indicator of compromises. It could just be some ashes. It could just be some IPs that are malicious. Share it. Get it into your SIM. Get it into your EDR. Block it there. Actively prevent things. Be proactive. In a financial system, we cannot be reactive. We need to be proactive, and that's where actionable threat intelligence come in. Real-time detection of incidents and fraudulent transactions, and that helps us. Like, it requires correlation of information and from various data sources. You cannot be depending on just one, and that's why I'm still always going to emphasize that collaboration is important. And finally, thank you. So much I would have loved to say, but I think I have just 20 minutes. But this is a very wonderful discourse that I would just want to leave us with and to get us thinking on how to solve our issues. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Sheyi. We really appreciate that wonderful session. All right, thank you, sir. Okay, right about now we go straight to our next speaker, okay, which is Mr. Geoffrey. Okay, Mr. Geoffrey Ofuego. Who is Mr. Geoffrey? Okay.
Good afternoon, I'm here.
All right, hold on please while I read out your profile to all our viewers. Okay, Mr. Geoffrey has 10. Okay, just mute your speaker for now, please.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
I've done that, yeah.
Like, you should mute it. I can still hear you. Okay,
can you hear me, please?
Yeah, like, you should mute your speaker while I read out your profile. Okay. All right, hello. Okay, Geoffrey has 10 years plus of experience in cybersecurity, delivering continuous security, delivering continuous security improvement by collaborating with other security experts to help identify more effective ways to prevent security threats. He is a certified information system security professional, that's CISSP. So, Mr. Geoffrey, over to you now. Okay, so you can unmute now while we have your session. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, the host. So, please, can I have access to share my screen too?
Okay, I'm coming. Please give me some minutes. Okay, you can share your screen now. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Please, can you confirm that you can see my screen, please?
Yes, I can see your screen. You can go
okay,
ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you very much for our speakers that have already spoken, Mr. Sheyi, Phillips, and Mr. Solomon. I actually learned a lot from what they've said. So my topic for today is identifying cloud attack surface. Very interesting. So now, first of all, let's look at the definition of an attack surface. Let's look at the definition of an attack surface. Can you hear me, please? Hello? Hello? Can you hear me, please?
I can hear you.
Okay, so I can go ahead, right?
Yes, you can.
Okay, what is an attack surface? An attack surface simply means total number of all possible entry points for unauthorized access to an organization's corporate network. It also includes all vulnerabilities too. So when you look at this diagram on the right side, you can see the organization network here. Then let's identify those entry points that have been connected to this organization network. Look at the cloud services, it's an entry point to an organization network. Look at the web services, especially those organizations that have internet-facing applications, is also what? An entry point to this organization. Look at plethora of devices like our laptops, our mobile phones, our tablets, which you use to perform office function, is also what? An entry point to this organizational network. Then let's look at the network nodes. These are nodes connected to your network through other networks. They are also entry point to this organizational network. Now, we can clearly understand here now that the moment you leave the comfort of your corporate network to leverage on external services, your security perimeter widens, so as the risk increases. So we've identified key steps we are going to follow to identify these attack surface and address them. So now let's look at some types of attack surface we have. We have digital attack surface, like cloud services, applications, both on-premises applications and web applications too. Then code, the lines on our codes are also attack surface. System ports, then servers. Then we look at the physical attack surface too. We have endpoint devices such as laptop, mobile devices, USB ports, desktop and systems. Now let's move into the fourth slide now. Cloud services, a scent or a necessary evil. Wow, really interesting. It is no secret that organizations are beginning to leverage on cloud services, to remove the burden of managing on-premises infrastructures. Now, look at some of the benefits organizations are looking to gain as they move into the cloud. Flexibility, then scalability, cost effectiveness, better managed on-premises infrastructure. So when we look at this now, on the other perspective, is cloud services a necessary evil? Of course, you can argue that we can get compromised while we enjoy some of these benefits. So we need to address some of these challenges too. Despite wide adoption of cloud services, security remains a key concern to some of these cloud customers. So when you look at what you see here, you need to understand that you have to address these challenges, you understand, to ensure that you don't get compromised when you are enjoying some of these benefits that took you to the crowd. So the next step now is that let's look at some cyber attacks in recent times, just to buttress the point that cloud services is also a necessary evil. Yeah. So when you look at some of the cyber attacks in recent times, you can see in 2018, Facebook, 50 million users' accounts compromised. Is on the rise as you watch the projectile. In 2019, Capital One, 100 million records stolen containing personal and financial information. In 2020, Twitter, attackers swindled $121,000 in Bitcoin through nearly 300 transactions. In 2021, Saudi Aramco, sensitive data on employees and technical specifications of the organization, exposed threat group Xerox, demanded $50 million as ransom. Then in 2021, it's still on the rise. Kesanya ransomware attack, compromising up to 1,500 companies with a staggering ransom note of $70 million. So that buttresses the point that cloud services is also a necessary evil. So we need to address some of the issues so that we don't get compromised. Now let's look at now before we delve into these steps to identify the attack surface, there are key concepts we need to bear in mind. We need to apply zero trust security concept. In a zero trust security concept, what it means that we need to verify every component, everything that's going to be part of these cloud services. The who are these people that are going to be part of these cloud services? I mean, your cloud team, you need to identify them. The what components and resources are you moving to the cloud? Then the how are you going to verify the who's and the what? It's very important that we understand this. So now we move into the next step. The next step is that now these are the key steps we need to take to identify cloud attack surface. First step is visibility. Second step is internal connectivity. Then third, configuration and external connectivity. Now, it is time to gain a holistic view of our cloud infrastructures as we dive deeper to identify some of these attack surface we just talked about. Now, identify cloud service providers. First of all, who are these service providers you want to leverage on? Who are they? You need to know them. Identify their locations. Where are their locations? Are they in the same location with you? Are they in different locations? Because you need to understand that, so you'll be able to know how your data is stored in those locations, how your data is secured, and also how your data is being processed. And on the other point, we need to understand the laws and regulations governing transborder data flow to ensure compliance. Because you don't want to violate rules. Because as data is being moved from one location to another, there's a laws and regulations governing transporter data flow. So we need to understand that too. Then once you've done that, this is the second step under visibility. But remember, it is difficult to gain 100% visibility as we plan to move into the cloud. But we can gain as much visibility as we can so that we really understand what we are going to do in the cloud. Let it be clear what you are going to do in the cloud. Does it address our business needs? You need to ask yourself that question, because cloud is also an entry point to your corporate network. Then after we've identified their locations, deployment model, what kind of deployment model do you want to leverage? Is it public cloud, where you want to be part of other customers? Is it private cloud? You want to own your own private cloud? Is it community cloud, when you want to belong to a certain group that share the same security policy and the concerns? Or is it hybrid cloud? You need to be very clear. What you want in the cloud needs to be very clear to you. So you don't just move into the cloud because other organizations are moving into the cloud. You need to identify what kind of deployment model you want. Is it going to address your business needs? It's very important to do that. Once you've done that, then the next step is service model. What kind of service model do you really want to leverage on? Is it software as a service? You want to host your data on the cloud? Or is it platform as a service? You want to host your application on the cloud? Or is it infrastructure as a service? You want to use the cloud infrastructures to perform your business functions? Then the final step is due diligence. You need to perform due diligence. What it means is that you need to do what? Identify, after you've identified these cloud service providers, demand for their security reports. I mean, you need that because you need to ascertain how much success have they recorded in terms of mitigating cloud security incidents, because you don't want to get into the wrong cloud service provider because you're in for trouble. So you need to do this. This visibility is very important because it needs to be clear to you. What am I going to the cloud to do? You don't just move into the cloud because other organizations are moving into the cloud. Then the next step we're going to talk about is internal connectivity. Internal connectivity is really very important that we address this. Now, identify those internal users that are going to be part of this cloud service. Your internal cloud team, who are they? Especially those users with privileged tasks. Because you know what it means when an attacker gets hold of private credentials. You know what it means. Meaning that attacker can do what? It can modify, it can disable, it can do what? It can bypass security control. I mean, it's going to be disastrous for the organization. So we need to identify these users. Constant training and awareness program is a continuous process. Introduce these users to the threat. Let them understand the threat methodology. You understand? How these threat actors act. They need to know that. And most importantly, modify their behavior towards security. It's very important that we understand that. So identify those users is very key. Then the next step under internal connectivities, identify internal devices. Identify the devices that's going to be part of these cloud services, especially the devices that will be performing privileged tasks, hardening them with security products. Because you don't take things for granted, because cloud environment is a different ball game. It's a unique environment on its own. It's not the same with on-premises infrastructure. So you need to identify those devices. Now, BYOD, bring your own device. A lot of organizations have adopted this BYOD policy, where they allow their employees to bring in their tablets and their mobile phones to perform office functions. But reference 2021 Cyber Threat Defense Report published by Cyber Edge Group has identified BYOD as the major cause of what? Data breaches, since organizations started adopting this policy. So organizations, they need to look at this, review this policy to address some of these concerns we just mentioned now. Then the next step under internal connectivity is applications. Very interesting. This is another entry point to your organization network. Now, we need to understand what kind of application do you want to move to the cloud? Are you going to develop a new application? Or are you going to use an existing application to move to the cloud? Is this application, is it cloud compliant? These are the questions you ask. Once you've identified what kind of application you want to move to the cloud, you'll be wary. Is also now about it. It's poor input validation. A lot of applications are what? Are guilty of this first step. You need to ensure that client-side input is validated. It's very important. Client-side input is validated because it's an entry point to that application. Then broken authentication. A lot of applications don't secure authentication information of users, meaning that users' credentials can be stolen by these attackers. And once they steal these credentials, they use it to what? Take over the account. And you know what it means to the organization. Then broken access control. A lot of applications don't adhere to the principles of least privilege. We've noticed it. You notice that a user have more resources, more access to resources than he required to perform his duty. So we need to look at this broken access control too. Then sensitive data exposure. A lot of applications don't use strong algorithm, encryption algorithm to do what? To secure sensitive data as they move from one location to another. So which can lead to what? Sensitive data exposure. You need to ensure that even when the data is at rest, when the data is in transit, and when the data is in process, strong encryption is required to ensure that these unauthorized personnel don't get hold of this sensitive data we are talking about. Then these are under internal steps. Then let's move to configuration. This is the third step to identify cloud attack surface. Configuration. Statistics has shown that 80% of cloud security incidents comes from the customers due to misconfiguration. So now look at the first step under configuration, default configuration versus security needs. Of course, every cloud platform comes with a default configuration. But the big question here is, this default configuration, is it going to address your security needs? It's a big question. If yes, then you can go ahead, you're good to go. But if not, consider configuring your cloud platform to suit your needs. It's very important that we do that. But before we move into the configuration aspect, it's also a good security practice to perform what we call security categorization. What it means that you need to assign metric values to your security objectives to be able to identify which security objective is the most important to your organization. Every organization is unique. Some organizations prioritize confidentiality, some organizations prioritize integrity, some organizations prioritize availability. So you need to understand which of these security objectives is the most important to this organization. That doesn't mean that the other two are not important. So during your configuration, configuration must align towards this security objective to ensure that that objective is achieved. Then after configuration, then the final step here is external connectivity. This is very important. External connectivity. Sorry. Under external connectivity, the first question is, will users access the cloud services through public network? Because this public network is an unsecure network. That is where these attackers reside. You understand? So if you have users that will be accessing these cloud services through public network, you need to do what? Constant security training and awareness program to keep them aware, to introduce them to this threat, to make them understand the threat methodology, how these threat actors act, so that once they see one, they're able to what? To identify it. Then we devices connect to the cloud environment through public network. If you have devices that are going to be accessing these cloud services through public network, you need to harden these devices with security products. It's very important that we do that, because that is where these attackers reside from, unsecure network. The moment you are there, you are at the mercy of these attackers. So if you don't do the needful, you get compromised. There's no two ways about that. Then the final step is we external vendors, contractors, suppliers access the cloud environment through the public network. Listen, this particular step is nice. One thing I noticed about this particular step is that once you connect a third party to your corporate network, you've inherited what we call downstream liability, meaning that you are liable to any data breach that might occur as a result of third party connecting to your corporate network. You're not going to say, oh, no, it's not coming from me. Our corporate network is tight. But you have third parties that are connected to your corporate network. So you have inherited what you call downstream liability. You are liable to anything that's going to happen as a result of those people being part of your network. Then, because of that, you need to perform what you call third party risk assessment to manage risk through supply chain, because supply chain attacks are on the rise now. It's very obvious. A lot of organization has been compromised through what third-party vendors. Then review and assess their security policies and documents. Is you right? No, you are not paying this third party. You are paying them for their services. They're not doing it. They're not doing you a favor. So demand for their security policies documents. Of course, assess their security control to ensure that if they meet the minimum security requirement, requires to be part of your corporate network. You need to do that. It's very important. Then finally, let's look at this. What remains to be seen now is whether all these entry points and preventive measures we just mentioned is enough, is sufficient to do what? To handle emerging threats and malicious actors. Is a big question. What if an attacker eventually finds his way into your corporate network? Because you can't continue leveraging on preventive measures all the while. You need to also leverage on detective tools, like the last speaker just said. Endpoint detection and response tools are very important in our everyday network now. Then your intrusion detection system is also very important. So that you'll be able to detect any data breach. It's a good segment. It will help to work once they come up to another. So the moment you segment your network logically, you understand, you'll be able to contain attackers' lateral movement. But remember, effective segmentation is not just dividing your network into smaller networks. It's how you control the flow of network traffic from one network segment to another. So it's very important that we leverage on this network segmentation while we plan to move into the cloud. Then BCP, your business continuity management. That is under BCP, BCM, will have business continuity plan and DRP. BCP and a DRP plan on ground to be able to show resilience even when a data breach occurs. Because you don't want a situation whereby once your corporate network is compromised, the business is down. You don't want to hear that. So your BCP and your DRP plans must be on ground. So even if data breach occurs, if that organization, that business should show that resilience to continue operating while you are trying to address some of these issues. Then your DRP plan will also help you to do what? Then most malicious, they should be able to aware malicious actors. They should be able to detect some malicious activities and report to the appropriate authority before it becomes a security incident. Then finally, remember this. Attackers are resilient and persistent. Once they need something for your corporate network, they must find a way around it. So it is highly unlikely you will prevent every data breach, but the resilience is key. Now, the last step is here. Someone may argue, why do I have to pass through all these steps? You understand? Since I have a cloud service provider with a highly robust security as part of their cloud services. The simple answer is this. You have the primary responsibility to secure your workload in the cloud. That is the truth. Because it's your workload. You need to do something to make sure that your workload is secure in the cloud while you enjoy some of those benefits we just mentioned earlier. So thank you very much. I have to stop here now. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Jeffrey. Thanks for that powerful session. We really appreciate that. Okay, please, again, I want to announce, if you have any question, kindly send it to our question and answer box, okay, while we read it out for each speaker. Okay, the next person to give us his talk is no other but Mr. Larry Olatunde. Mr. Larry Olatunde. Now I'm going to read out his profile as to know who Mr. Larry is. The question was okay. Before I bring Mr. Larry on board, a question was posted to Mr. Geoffrey. Please, can you please check? Mr. Geoffrey, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there.
Okay, there's a question sent to you. Okay, so can you please check?
I'm trying to see the question.
All right.
Okay, sorry, let me see. I'm trying to.
Yeah, then that's the question. Let's roll up. Scroll down. Come on.
I'm yet to see the question. I'm trying to see the. I can't find the question.
You
Here.
can't find the question, right?
Yes, I'm trying to see. Is it under question and answer? I can't find it.
It's
Under
not.
chat.
It's not under question and answer.
Under
I think
chat,
it's
yes,
under
that's
chat.
what
Yeah.
Yes, I can't see the question. Or
Okay, I think this is the question. To build. Okay, let me read out the question to you.
okay.
Okay, I'm sending the question now. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So I've sent the question. Can you check now? Person said to build a strong security architecture around cloud infrastructure, can identify top 7 key things every organization must do to ensure the security of their cloud.
7 key. Okay, let's look at now as you're moving to the cloud. Sorry, excuse me. I have a bit internet connection. The line is breaking. The line is breaking.
Okay, but we
Okay,
can hear
so
you clearly, sir.
yes, okay. So to build a strong security architecture around cloud infrastructures, can identify some key steps every organization must do to ensure secure. But before you move into the cloud, first of all, we call it 4-phase approach you are going to follow. It's a 4-phase approach that is standard. First is what? Research and pre-planning is very important because this is going to help you to bring a strong security architecture. Then planning and purchasing, because when you're planning, you also need to purchase, the kind of cloud service platform you're going to purchase. The next one is execution and operation. So these 4 steps is a standard procedure that you have to follow to ensure that you build a strong security architecture around your cloud infrastructure. Thank you very much. Can you hear me, please?
I can hear you, sir, Mr.
Okay.
Geoffrey. Okay,
Yeah.
I think another question is being asked. Okay, he said, please, is there a way we can have? Okay, sorry. I think the question is not for you.
Okay.
The person is asking if there's a way we can get the PowerPoint presentation for reference purposes. Okay, I think that will be addressed later. Okay, thank you so much, sir, Mr. Geoffrey. You can now mute your speaker.
Okay.
Okay, the next person to give us his presentation now is that's Mr. Olatunde. He's not allowed. Yes. All right, I'm very, very sorry for that break in transmission. Okay, the next person to give us his own presentation is no other but Mr. Lanre Olatunde. Mr. Lanre Olatunde. Okay, who is Mr. Lanre? Mr. Lanre sorry, is an information security and risk management professional offering 12 offering more than 12 years experience across MEA in financial services, that is banking, pension and insurance, and telecommunication, consumers and military industries. His experience spans across information and cybersecurity, IT risk and compliance, IT policy and governance, IT strategy and security architecture, systems audits and controls including SOX, data privacy and protection, that is NDPR and GDPR. Okay, business continuity and disaster recovery and implementation of standard including COBIT and PCI-DSS and ISO. He currently serves as the Chief Information Security Officer, Head Information Security in one of Africa's foremost leading financial services firm, incorporating gap assessment and remediation skills in information security risk management within the organization. So over to you, Mr. Lanre, while you give us your presentation now. Thank you. 20 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, guys, and pleasure to be here. Please, if you could enable me to share my screen so that
yeah, you can share your screen now. Thank you, sir.
All right, so just a minute, I'll come up my slides.
Okay, Mr. Tunde, we can see your screen now. You can go ahead, please. Can you please unmute
Good afternoon,
your
everyone,
speaker?
and welcome to CyberAcon' 2021. It's been an interesting session so far, starting from yesterday leading up to today, which is the grand finale. And I've spent some time listening to previous speakers, and I must say it's been very enlightening. This is a one-of-a-kind, I would say, cybersecurity conference. All right, today I'm going to be taking you through the topic, privacy, governance, and security management at the enterprise level. Once again, I'm Larry Olatunde, and it's a pleasure to be doing this presentation to all of you. All right, so for today's outline, I have 4 sections, from section 0 to section 3, and we'll be looking at cybersecurity statistics and privacy facts. Then we're going to data privacy and data security, and then we'll also look into some privacy myths and privacy risks, and then we'll wrap up with privacy governance and privacy controls. Now, let's look at cybersecurity statistics and privacy facts. Now, let's look at 10 world cybersecurity statistics in 2021. Now, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, which has rampaged the world since the end of 2019 through 2020, and we're still feeling the effect of 2021, cybercrime has gone up by 600% due to the pandemic. And the other thing that has also gone up due to the pandemic is remote working. And by some statistics done from some research, we found out that the average cost of a data breach has increased to $137,000 as a result of remote working. Now, 43% of cyber attacks target small businesses. So for those of us that think that only large organizations are the major victims of cyber attacks, you might want to think twice about that. Now, 95% of cybersecurity breaches are as a result of human error, and 94% of malware is delivered via email. Now, let's go into some privacy facts. Now, many users assume that the internet is basically fair and safe to use, and that most websites have what we call transparent data policies, but that's not always true. It's also important to know that 91% of cyber attacks are launched through phishing emails. And it's very good to also mention at this point that Microsoft Office files that you receive either via removable storage or via file attachment for an email should not always be trusted. And online users are worried about their emails being read by unauthorized users, and almost 34% have started using secure email providers and other encrypted technologies like VPNs. Recent estimates also suggest that 41% of children aged between 8 and 17 have public profiles online. The next section I have here is data privacy and data security. I'll be spending a few minutes. Now, let's discuss privacy. There's been a misconception about privacy that confuses many people. People tend to share seemingly related or related personal information online, such as birthdays, addresses, contact details, marriage, holiday plans, all of these on social media. And people are also inclined to share pictures of their favorite foods, people, localities, and workplaces, in addition to providing opinions on sensitive issues, be it religious, national, or political issues, throughout different social media platforms. On the other hand, there are new and exciting technologies that are emerging almost on a daily basis, and people share their information in the guise of maybe playing games online, attending virtual worlds, and doing shopping online. Similarly, organizations also collect and store relevant personal information for business purposes, and consequently, the privacy risk increases ubiquitously with every share. The shared data, individually or collectively, can be used for malicious activities. Now, before moving ahead, let's have a clear understanding of privacy and related terminologies. Now, there are various privacy definitions that you come across online, like the one you have displayed on the screen right now, where, according to Wikipedia, privacy is defined as the ability of individuals or groups of people to seclude themselves or information about themselves and thereby express themselves selectively. In other words, privacy is an individual's fundamental right to have control over the collection, usage, and dissemination of personally identifiable information. But let's look into other definitions, and then you see that data privacy or information privacy is concerned with proper handling, processing, storage, and usage of personal information. It's all about the rights of individuals with respect to their personal information. And privacy in general is an individual's right to freedom from intrusion, prying eyes, or the rights of the person to be left alone. Another source also says that privacy is the ability of an individual or group to seclude themselves or information about themselves and thereby express themselves selectively. And that's the same one I read from Wikipedia one more time. So personally identifiable information, for a number of us who might be new in terms of data privacy, personally identifiable information is information that directly or indirectly identifies an individual. For instance, names, addresses, date and place of birth, national identity number, biometric information, for example, your photo or your fingerprint or your iris, which can be used for an iris scan. So data privacy, which is a slightly different, has a slightly different definition from what privacy is. It sometimes can be referred to as information privacy, and is actually the technical aspect of information security or cybersecurity that deals with the ability of an organization to handle PII, or an individual's rights to determine what kind of data can be collected, stored in a computer system, and can be shared with third parties. Now let's look at data privacy and data security and how they relate to each other. Now, people and organizations are sometimes confused by the differences between data privacy and data security. Both of them pertain to personally identifiable information, PII, but they are also distinct concepts. Because data privacy is about the control that's related to usage and governance over personally identifiable information, such as policies and procedures being established to ensure that PII is collected, stored, used, and shared appropriately. Whilst data security is about ensuring that technical controls relating to confidentiality, integrity, and availability are implemented to protect PII from malicious cyber attacks. So in other words, Data security is a technical aspect of a PII, whereas data privacy is a legal aspect. In layman terms, privacy is the fundamental right to be left alone without any intervention. Now, although data security and data privacy look similar, they are quite different from each other. All right? So, data privacy, or data security rather, deals with the protection of data from cyber criminals, while data privacy deals with how data organizations or individuals legally gather, store, and use data. According to TechTarget, a popular online forum, data security and privacy are part of information technology, dealing with an organization or individual's ability to determine the data in a system that can be shared with third parties. And furthermore, it helps organizations protect data in the office and in the employees' hands while reducing the vulnerabilities that hackers can exploit. Now, why is data security and privacy important? There are a lot of reasons why data security and privacy are important for organizations, and some of them are it helps reduce the number of data breaches that an organization can suffer from, and it also helps prevent loss of revenue. It helps protect customers' privacy and for maintaining and improving brand value. It also supports an organization's code of ethics, and it gives competitive advantage over other businesses. Data security and data privacy are strongly interconnected, but not the same. Knowing the differences is important for better understanding how they work and what they each mean to your business. Consider a scenario where you've gone to great lengths to secure personally identifiable information, PII. The data is encrypted, access is restricted, and multiple overlapping monitoring systems are in place. And however, if that PII was collected without proper consent, you could be violating a data privacy regulation, even though that data is in your possession and is secure. Right? So that's exactly how data privacy and data security relate to each other. In this section, I'll be taking you through some privacy myths and some risks. Now, some of the privacy myths I'll touch on here is information leak prevention is the security administrator's problem. That's a myth because information leak prevention is a responsibility of everyone in the organization. And a lot of people believe that if they block instant messaging, web-based email, and external storage devices, they don't need to worry about information leaks. And this is also a privacy myth. And you also see scenarios where they say only regulated industries need information leak prevention technology. And that's also a myth. And I would like to also mention this one, which says that my employees understand what they can and they can't send out of the company. You'll be surprised that most of your employees do not know what they can and they can't send out of their organization. Going into privacy risks, which I have about 10 of them here, which I have curated from the OWASP top 10 privacy risks. OWASP is short or an acronym for Open Web Application Security Project, and they are popularly known for releasing the OWASP top 10 annually. Well, what they have listed as the top 10 privacy risks are what I have displayed here on the slide in front of you. And one of the biggest challenges faced by any organization is managing privacy risks. Since privacy awareness has increased over time, people are becoming more concerned with how organizations are handling their personal information. Moreover, with the inception of privacy regulatory laws and associated penalties, it has become mandatory for organizations to take necessary steps in establishing and implementing a strong privacy risk management framework. Inadequate or the lack of a risk management framework may present numerous organizational risks, such as possible damage to the organization's public image and reputation, and then potential financial and operational losses, regulatory sanctions and penalties or fines, and the loss of customers' trust and failure to attract customers. And finally, it may also lead to damaged business relationships. But now let's go into these top 10 privacy risks according to the Open Web Application Security Project, OWASP. Now, for web application vulnerabilities, vulnerability is a key problem in any system that guards or operates on sensitive user data. right? So failure to suitably design and implement an application, detect a problem, or promptly apply a fix, what you also call a patch, is likely to result in a privacy breach. This risk also encompasses the OWASP top 10 list of web application vulnerabilities, which I mentioned earlier, and the risks that result from them. Now, let's look at operator-sided data leakage. Now, this is the failure to prevent the leakage of any information containing or related to user data or the data itself to any unauthorized party, right? This is actually resulting in loss of data confidentiality introduced either due to intentional malicious breach or unintentional mistake that's maybe, for example, caused by insufficient access management controls or insecure storage or perhaps duplication of data or a lack of awareness. All right. Now let's look at insufficient data breach response. Not informing the affected persons, who we refer to as data subjects, about a possible breach or data leak, resulting either from intentional or unintentional events. Essentially, failure to remedy the situation by fixing the cause and not attempting to limit the leaks is also considered a privacy risk. Now, many organizations usually do this as consent on everything, and it's a huge privacy risk when you apply consent on everything. This is because most times organizations do not want to deal with individual privacy clauses, but they just want to have a blanket consent, obtaining a blanket consent from the data subject on data privacy. Now, when we look at consent on everything, insufficient deletion of personal data. Now, aggregation or what I call inappropriate use of consent to legitimate processing, and consent is on everything and not collected separately for each purpose, right? That's e.g. Use of website and profiling for advertising, non-transparent policies, terms and conditions. All these actually constitute what we call privacy risks. So now let's also look into non-transparent policies, terms and conditions. So a number of organizations also do not have what we call transparent policies or terms and conditions, and this is also considered as a privacy risk. And we also have the part of insufficient deletion of user data. So failure to effectively and or timely delete personal data after termination of the specified purpose or upon request. This is also going to result in a huge privacy risk. And then we also have privacy risks around insufficient data quality, which basically speaks to the use of outdated or incorrect or bogus user data, and also missing an insufficient session experience if you're using an application or a system, privacy risk. Now, it may not also be data. Now, today, we'll be looking at privacy governance and control. Now, what are these privacy governance practices and controls that can help us to manage privacy risks? Okay, so I'm just going to through what I would say 9 recommended good privacy governance practices, and starting off with informing you that digital records of PII demand unique forms of protection at each part of their life cycle, and it is paramount for an organization to implement effective privacy programs that includes the following good governance and controls in order to access or actually to address the privacy risks that you have here that we discussed earlier. Okay, so the first part we'll be looking at is privacy governance, and the first part of privacy governance is to have a formal corporate governance structure to determine the level of privacy risk appetite acceptable for senior management. Number 2, you also want to have a privacy framework containing policies and procedures relating to privacy of personal information to address data classification, record management, retention, and destruction. 3, you want to also ensure that you have a privacy risk management framework which will be developed to identify, analyze, and evaluate, and also treat privacy risks. You also want to ensure that you have defined the roles, responsibilities, and accountability related to the privacy program during its life cycle. Now, let's look into data collection, and basically, we want to document the business purposes for collecting personal information to ensure that PII, which are not required, are not collected and retained. Now, 6, identify what kind of PII the organization is required to collect, who will collect that information, how it should be collected, and who will define what is personal or private. Now, let's look into permissions. And first, you have to be well aware about where all personal information is stored and who has access to them. And we also implement a technical solution to set different permission levels for employees based on what PII they need to access, such as public, private, and restricted access. And then if you look at data confidentiality, which is number 4 on the screen, data confidentiality assurance, you want to ensure that PII is encrypted at rest and in motion, and also throughout the life cycle. PII should be encrypted at various levels, whether it's database level or network level or system platform level or application layers, and even business process or functional levels. You also want to identify the disclosure rules of PII to relevant third parties and not disclose to unauthorized entities, that's people and systems. Now, data governance and education. You want to ensure that you define an awareness program to provide employees the privacy awareness training and have guidance on their specific responsibilities in handling privacy requirements or issues and concerns. Employees who handle or have access to personal information must have undergone the required training, and you want to ensure that skilled resources are available to develop, implement, and maintain an effective privacy program. Now, privacy compliance monitoring framework. You want to establish a compliance monitoring framework to periodically verify the compliance level to ensure that privacy policies and procedures are being followed and detailed enough to meet new or current requirements. You also want to ensure that you perform an assessment of privacy laws and regulations currently applicable for the organization, or which one will be applicable in the future. Now, we also want to ensure that you have in place a privacy incident response plan. Basically, you want to develop a privacy incident response plan in the event of a breach or attempted breaches or of personal information, and to report such breaches to the authorized individuals or regulators or anyone who have been affected by a data breach. This includes breaches that occur on the part of third parties. Now, we also have what we call the data flow map, which is basically a document or map that covers what kind of information is subject to transfer from one location to another, such as between departments, between individuals, to and from third parties, and also through geographical borders. We also want to ensure that you have privacy technical solutions, which are basically software or system or technology to be used for privacy. And this should be fully evaluated and secured before deployment. You want to consider deploying even hyperautomation to automatically redact PII from both static files and audio-video recordings when necessary. So what are the key benefits of good privacy governance and controls? And I'll outline some of these key benefits below. So protecting the organization's image and reputation, protecting valuable data of the organization and its customers, employees, and business partners, achieving a competitive advantage in the marketplace, right? Complying with applicable privacy laws and regulations and avoiding regulatory penalties, enhancing an organization's credibility and also promoting confidence, right? So protecting privacy cannot be separated from technological development. And these days, organizations are inclined to invest in security technology to reduce the risk of privacy exposure. However, there is no technology that will prevent and eliminate the risk of every data privacy breach. So organizations should fully understand the nature of risk and take a layered approach to improve their security posture, especially by taking the time to understand PII and reevaluate how the privacy data can be managed and protected. So now let's go into the next slide, where we'll be discussing the technical controls that you can put in place to help address the various privacy risks. And this would be an offshoot of the privacy technical solutions, which we just. So now, privacy controls. You'd see a number that I have here. We have about 10 of them. And the first one is identity and access management. Now, having the proper IDAM controls in place will help limit access to personal data for unauthorized employees. The two key principles in IDAM is separation of duties and least privilege. To help ensure that employees have access only to information or systems applicable to their job function. And what this, how does this affect GDPR or NDPR, right? What does this mean in terms of data protection regulation? Only those who need to access personal information to perform their job have access. And in this situation, privacy training should be available to those individuals to ensure that the intended purpose for the collection of personal data, all right, is maintained. Now, we also have the second privacy control here, which is DLP, data loss prevention, which many of us might be familiar with. And it's also very relevant to data protection regulation, as DLP helps prevent the loss of personal data. It provides technical safeguards such as DLP2 that are critical in preventing a breach and becoming the next headline. So according to data protection regulations and organizations, whether they are the controller or processor of personal information, they are held liable for the loss of any personal data that they collect. Incorporating DLP controls adds a layer of protection by restricting the transmission of personal data outside the network. And then we also have encryption and pseudonymization. Pseudonymization is a difficult word to spell and an even more difficult one to pronounce. However, pseudonymization is the process of personal data is the processing of personal data in such a way that the data can no longer be attributed to a specific data subject without the use of additional information. Now, this fancy hard to say word may include field level encryption in databases, encryption of entire data stores at rest, as well as encryption of data in use and in transit. So pseudonymization is something that the data protection regulation advises but doesn't require. However, if an incident leading to a security breach occurs, investigators will consider if the organization responsible for the breach has implemented these types of data protection regulation technical controls and technologies. Now, back to the incident response plan again. A mature incident response plan should address phases such as preparation, identification, containment, eradication, recovery, and lessons learned. But what if an incident occurs and it was identified that personal data may have been breached? There are data protection regulation technical requirements for the organization's incident response, and these breach notification requirements are among the most notable in the legislation under the data protection regulation. In the event of a potential data breach that involves personal information, an organization must notify the data protection authority without undue delay within 72 hours if feasible, and after becoming aware of the breach, and communicate high risk breaches to affected data subjects without undue delay. Now let's look at third-party risk management. If an organization entrusts the processing of personal data to a processor or sub-processor, and a breach occurs, who is liable? Quick answer is liability for all processors are bound by their controllers, instructions. However, data protection regulations data compliance also obligates processors to have an active role in the protection of personal data. So regardless of instructions from the controller, the processor or personal data must follow data protection regulation and can be liable for any incident associated with the loss of unauthorized access to personal data. So sub-processors also will need to comply with the data protection regulation based on each contractual relationship established between a processor and sub-processor. As you can see, data protection regulation cybersecurity compliance is just as important for third-party relationships as it is internally for an organization, as long as those third-party processes store or transmit personal data of concerned data subjects. Now, we also have policy management. So while this is the last concept covered here, it's my personal favorite, right? And policy is the teeth, the hammer, and an accountability partner for the previously discussed data security controls. To be effective, policy must receive enterprise-wide buy-in in order to manage and update data security controls in an always changing cybersecurity environment. So for best practices, organizational policy acknowledgement and training ensures policies are properly communicated and understood. Now, know your data. It is essential to know what information is being collected, how it is being used, and whether it is being sold to or shared with third parties. Since different types of PII and their combinations are not equal in their value, and some types of personal data become sensitive in certain contexts, you need to classify your data using a quality data discovery and classification solution. Now, you also ensure that you get control over your data stores and backups. Make sure you don't keep personal data without a defined purpose. Develop retention policies and minimize personal data according to its value and risk. Safeguard against unauthorized access. Implement and strictly maintain the least privilege principle to ensure that users can access only the data that they need to do their jobs, and monitor your systems for suspicious access attempts. So devices, computers, and network drives should have adequate security controls in place, such as access controls, encryption and antivirus software, and the likes. Finally, manage and control risk. Data privacy protection needs to include a regular risk assessment. Instead of building a framework from scratch, you can adopt a commonly used one, such as the NIST Risk Assessment Framework documented in the special publication SP 830. Now, this brings us to the end of today's session on privacy governance and security management and the enterprise. I hope you had a great time. I hope you're able to learn a thing or two, and I look forward to speaking to you again sometime soon. Thank you very much, anyone. At this point, I'll take a bow. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Lanre. Really appreciate you for that session. That was a powerful one. Okay, right about now, before we move to our next presentation, Mr. Lanre, please, I would like you, there is somebody, our Chief Executive Officer has a question for you. Okay, so over to you, sir. Mr. Sylvester, over to you.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, we can hear you, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Larry. There is an issue that I want you to help us to clarify based on certain things and based on what some people have been getting involved, most especially on data privacy. You know, there is those company that's always borrowing money that they always require people access to their contacts. You know, what is your advice to this set of people when it comes to data privacy? Because we realize most times, you know, they call all the contacts on that particular, by the time that individual accepts to let them have access to their contacts, you know, you see different text message, different calling, is most especially they keep on bombarding those that didn't know anything about the loan, and they will keep bombarding them with messages. So in that case, what do you think we can do at that instance?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. So, all right. So first of all, I mean, going by the contents of the data protection regulation and also looking at from a data privacy point of view, these loan companies that actually gain access to contacts or what I would call personal information of their customers are actually in breach of the data protection regulation, simply because the data that they're procuring has nothing in relation to the transaction they're having with that particular customer. So essentially, most times, I mean, data protection is more focused on the organization than on individuals. And how do I mean here? So the same way the data protection regulation would apply to organizations that store customer data, the data protection regulation does not say much in terms of individuals that store personal data. So in the case that you gain those loan companies gain access to the contacts personal information of other data subjects that are not related to that particular transaction, especially for the fact that they didn't get their consent or permission, then absolutely they are consistently in violation of that. And I think very recently, NICDA has been campaigning or probably released some media article or publication concerning this. So essentially, it's very bad practice from those organizations, because I'm very familiar with this. They go ahead to reach out to contacts of the defaulters to more or less like broadcast. It's almost like a form of social shaming to say that this person is owing a loan, blah, 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 can you help reach out? So it's a violation of data privacy, and it's a violation of data protection regulation.
Thank you, sir. So, can we say now they have the breach of contract, or what can you say about that?
So it may not be a breach of contract from the perspective of between the customer and the organization. Reason being that for most of the organizations, before they can gain access to your contacts, is actually explicitly seek your permission. You may not even be able to use their app without granting that particular permission. However, sometimes they also hide this within the terms and conditions, which the customer has actually signed under to actually for them to actually reach out. So, I mean, a lot of people do not actually go ahead to read terms and conditions in terms of what the organization will do and not do. So, in two scenarios, in a scenario where the loan company did not disclose that, it's definitely a breach of contract. But in a scenario where the loan company has actually included that in their terms and conditions, then absolutely they are not in a breach of contract. But not being in a breach of contract does not guarantee or constitute that we are not in a breach of data privacy.
Thank you very much, sir. I really commend that. So maybe back to Mr. Sa. So you can go ahead.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for that question.
Yes.
Okay. Right now.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So you can now mute your speaker, please. All right. Right now, we want to bring Mr. Tessie on board as he gave his presentation. Okay, so Mr. Tessie, please over to you. Mr. Tessie, are you there? Mr. Tessie? Hello, Mr. Tessie, are you there? Hello. Hello, Mr. Tessie. All right. Very sorry for the break in transmission. Okay, while we are still waiting for our next person to present, we would like to ask all the speakers or that is online some questions, please. Okay, so why we invite one of our staff to ask those questions. Mr. Victor, please, over to you.
Welcome back. My name is Victor Emeta. I'm one of the co-hosts of CyberAcon'21, and it has been an insightful, cyber security awareness conference, and going through all our, questions from our speakers like Mr. Philip, Mr. Larry, Mr. Happiness, Mr. Geoffrey, and the rest. So my first question I wanted to throw is. As Mr. Geoffrey said, he talked about human being the weakest link despite training and awareness. So why do you think humans are still the weakest link when it comes to cybersecurity training and awareness? So if anyone could help us with that, why do you think humans are still the weakest link, like when it comes to cybersecurity awareness and training.
Hello?
I can hear you.
Okay, so actually, from your question, but before I address this question, I want to go back to the question I was asked before after my presentation. I think I lost connection at some point. So I didn't finish, I didn't address the question. But by the time I came back, someone else is already presenting. So I don't know whether, can I still go back to that question and address it properly? Because
you have 5 minutes to do that.
oh, okay, no, just to buttress what I've already mentioned the 4-phased approach. So when I was about identifying the 7 key steps, I think I lost connection. The 7 key steps, somebody asked to build a strong security architecture around cloud infrastructure. Kindly identify top 7 key things every organization must do to ensure the security of their cloud infrastructure. So I didn't finish that question. I said I want to complete it because I've already mentioned the 4-phased approach. So the 7 key steps that you need to follow to ensure that you build a strong security architecture around cloud is 1, security at each layer. Each OSI layer, you must build security there. That's the first step. Then the second step is centralized management of components. Then the third step is redundant and resilient design. These are steps you have to take to ensure that the security architecture is strong. Then the fourth step is elasticity and scalability. Then you now talk about the 5th step, appropriate storage for deployment, because before you deploy, you ensure you have enough storage system to do that before you start your deployment. Then you talk about security alerts and notification. That is the step 6. So finally, step 7 is centralization, standardization, and automation.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I've addressed the question properly.
Yeah, thank you.
I lost connection at some point, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Geoffrey. Is there any other of the speakers that would like a question? Why you think it is? If it's possible for us to, to solve that issue, why humans are still the weakest?
No, can I address the question?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, you see, is the general saying that people are the weakest link, and they are not far from the truth, because that's why they need constant training and awareness program, because users can easily be tricked with simple social engineering techniques. So one-off training and awareness is not enough. So even if you continue training, you still have some certain users, some weak users that can be tricked. I mean, unsuspecting users. So what you do is that to address this issue, because they are the weakest link, is ensure that your program, your training and awareness program is a continuous process, because you still have users who are very weak in terms of detecting malicious activities. So they're always being compromised. It is one thing that is natural. So, but with continuous training and awareness, it can actually mitigate the threats that comes from that angle. I think that's my take on that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Geoffrey. Is there any other speaker that would like to address that or talk about that? Mr. Philip? If there is no any other question, Mr. Concerning the COVID-19 era, talking about improving corporate cybersecurity. So one of the questions I would like to ask, during this COVID-19, the COVID-19 breakdown, workers working from home, as cybercrime increased during that time, and why was the cause? Working from home, because most people have to use their system, taking their system home, and we believe in that particular era, that particular time, systems were being hacked. And why do you think that was during those COVID-19? Anybody to buttress the point for us?
Is it for any speaker to answer, or is it directed to?
Speaker.
Okay, let me just add my own view on that. Internet is an unsecure network, so that is where these attackers reside. So there is not enough training and awareness program for these users, especially the non-technical users. So there's every tendency that they can be tricked into releasing sensitive information, or even their credentials can be stolen. So because internet is an unsecure network, the risk is high. That is the truth. The risk is high. So what we need is that some of these users are not aware. They are not really aware of the threat methodology these malicious actors are using. So the chances that they can be tricked into releasing sensitive information is pretty high. So that's my take on that.
Thank you, Mr. Geoffrey. And,
Yeah.
Our next speaker coming up soon, and that's Mr.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Victor, for that session. Right now, we want to bring on somebody to talk to us as we've been discussing in this summit. Okay, and the person to do that is no other but Mr. That's Mr. Tessie. All right, so Mr. Tessie, please, over to you. Mr. Tessie, are you there? Hello, Mr. Tessie. If you are there, please kindly unmute your speaker.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Hello. All right, good afternoon. We can hear you.
Yeah, my stop this maybe James, not Mr. Tessie. That was why I got confused.
Okay, it's not Mr. Tessie.
Maybe James from Farm Connect.
Oh, okay. So sorry for that. So sorry for that. All right, Mr. Nobiolu Dayo James, can you continue, please?
Thank you very much for having me on the call today. Once again, I'm Nobiolu Dayo James from Farm Connect, Nigeria. So may I share my screen? Permit me to share my screen, please.
Kindly hold on, please, while I allow you to share your screen. Okay, Mr. Oludayo James, you are good to go, sir.
Thank you very much. Just 10 seconds. Okay. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, once again, thank you very much. I am Nubi Oludayo James from Farm Connect, and thanks for the opportunity given to me to be here today. Today, I'll be talking about Farm Connect and figures. Farm Connect Agribusiness Nigeria is an... Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, please. Hello? You have just 10 minutes for your presentation.
Okay,
we can hear you.
Agribusiness Nigeria, it's an agricultural which provide innovative service farming operation through modern technologies, skills, and partnering to improve productivity and effective food distribution with the aim of mitigating food insecurity and malnutrition. Here at Farm Connect, we believe that small-scale farming is only an hobby, and we can make an impact on global food shortage. Therefore, we develop a concept of real estate, agricultural real estate, which enables us to leverage the power of economies of scale towards food production. Using food as our pennies here. We believe that when there is enough food for all, there is less violence. That is, when we have enough food, we can maintain a standard of national security. So when we have enough food, that was why we came about the motto, which is agriculture is peace. Because when there is food, when there is less poverty or no poverty, everybody will be comfortable. There will be national security. So that is why we call it agriculture is peace. So the background of Farm Connect started with I started far in 1990, as back as 1994, where a young man was serving as an apprentice in a small aquaculture farm in Mokola GRA, Ibadan, Nigeria. The experience of this young man developed into underlying passion of aquaculture, which eventually spilled over to other areas of agriculture, starting with single fish ponds. And at the place of apprentice, this business grew gradually and became what we call Farm Connect today. So our vision at Farm Connect, our vision is to make profiting from agriculture easier and consistent to all and sundry without limitation by boundaries, time, space, social and financial status. So our vision at Farm Connect is to make agriculture very easy for everyone, irrespective of your boundary, the time, the space, or social or financial status. So our mission is to contribute immensely to food security and national and nutrition through agricultural real estate of modern technologies and methodologies. Our core values. One of them is integrity. We have our main core values are integrity. At Farm Connect, we describe integrity like a ball. We describe integrity as a ball, which maintains perspective from all angles of view, which reflects it in a facet of our business and services. Competence, the next one. A modern agriculture demand practice in accordance with global standard. Anytime less will eventually fail. Anything less from that will eventually fail. So our competence actually describes who we are. Simplicity. At Farm Connect, the next one, simplicity. At Farm Connect, we make things easier by eliminating complexity. And the next one is equality. Equity. People should be commensurately rewarded for their efforts. It's of importance to create a level of playground for people with diverse background and status. So we maintain equity. We reward people. We commensurately reward people according to their efforts. So, and I go to the next slide, which is our philosophies. One of our philosophy in Farm Connect is we do not need more farmers. We need smarter farmers. We need smart farmers. Let me cite an example. We have a farmland having a farmland of about 5 hectares. And if you are to get a labor force to clear and spray the land, we will be needing over, let me just use maybe 50 manpower to do that. But with smart machineries, we will be able to clear this farm within an hour. We can use the spraying drone to do that. So we need smart farmers, not more farmers. Then we should collaborate, not compete. Farmers should collaborate. I would believe in collaboration, not competing with others. We can bring in more farmers to collaborate instead of competing, doing what others doing. Because at times we have this, let me use this culture in Nigeria whereby because someone is selling more or doing a kind of trade, and they believe, oh, these people are doing well in this business pattern. So some people tend to move towards that. But in Farm Connect, we believe in bringing them together, not competing with them. So we need to inculcate the culture. The next one is to inculcate the culture of agriculture. Inculcating the culture of agriculture means making agriculture applicable to every discipline. Even you being a farmer, being a banker, a teacher, you should be able to inculcate, practice the culture of agriculture. I believe we are all farmers. Not only those that go to the farm are farmers. Everyone is a farmer. Let me just use we are all consumers. So being a consumer, you are also a farmer. You are an agriculturist. So the next one is we do it really big. Agriculture stinks and mediocrity kills. So we do it big. It is not being in between. In order for you to make profit in agriculture, you have to do it very big. And the last one is farm what they don't and sell what they farm. So we have this philosophy that it is not a must for we to do what other people do, but we can actually market what you do, help you sell what you do. So the next one is what we sell. So at Farm Connect, we sell agricultural facilities and agricultural services. So I would like to go to the next slide, which describes the products we sell and the agricultural facilities we sell. So we have the Dutch greenhouse, hello? Am I still on the call?
You are.
Yes,
You
we
are.
can
We
hear
can hear
you.
you. Please, you have
Yes.
2 minutes more, please.
Let me just run through this. We have the Dutch greenhouse, we have the poultry simple shed, the next slide, we have the cold room, the Caterpillar greenhouse, we have the floating cages. And with all these packages we have, you could actually you could actually, on the next slide, please. Oh, there's an error. Okay, there's an error somewhere. So we have am I still on the call?
Yes, you are. Yes, Mr. James, you are online.
So we have the floating cage has a capacity of 6 ton of fishes, which over 4,000 pieces of 600 kg fishes. The lifespan is for 7 years. Setup time is for 3 months, and we can actually 3 months. Potential return for this is 40%. So all these packages are being run on different agricultural real estate model. We have the Mudaraba, we have the Green Flex, Green Fix, and co. So then so we go to the next slide, which is Figures. Figures is a baby to Farm Connect. It is the agricultural. It is the farm. Figures is Farm Connect agricultural.
Okay, Mr. James, please kindly be rounding, please.
And the main vision of Figures is likely the same with Farm Connect, where is the same with Farm Connect, where our vision in Figures is to make agriculture profiting. And in order to make agriculture profiting, we need to inculcate the habits of smart farming and precision farming. With this, and precision farming is an assistant management decision using high technology sensors and analysis tools. So our services at Farm Connect, like I said earlier, we have two products we sell. We sell agricultural real estate as service, agricultural real estate and we also offer services. So part of the services is the farm directory. The farm directory has the list of all farms across West Africa. That is one. We have the Agrivent. Agrivent is a platform which uses which has the concept of which embeds the concept of agriculture from farm to fork. That is from manufacturer to final consumer. On Agrivent portal, the Agrivent portal links farmers to the final consumer, right? From being from the on-site, the seed sellers, the farmers, the producer, including logistic, and to the final consumers as well. So the next one, let me quickly run to the slide. I'm sorry. We have our other services we offer, the on-site services. The on-site services like the test of water quality. We have the water quality analyzer to test the water quality, fertilizer analyzer to test fertilizer. We have the soil testing kit to test the soil. The water analyzer is used to detect the turgidity and the acidity and alkalinity of the soil as well. We have the soil sample collector to collect soil sample. And we have the drone. We also use drone for the UAV unmanned area vehicles for precision farming as well at farm connect. So the drones are used for irrigation services, security coordination, Thank you very much for having me. That is all. Hello?
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. James. We got to very clear. All right, thank you so much for that. All right, can you please mute your speaker now? Mute your speaker now. Okay, thank you, sir. The next person to Mr. James, please mute your speaker. Okay. And you can close your slide as well. Okay, the next person to present now is no other but Mr. Ekochi. Mr. Ekochi, please, over to you.
Thank you very much. Let me just share my slide, my deck.
Okay, hold on, please. Let me make you. All right, so you can share your slide now.
Okay. Can you see my slide?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. You can go ahead, please.
Okay. Okay, so thanks everyone. My name is Ekuchinjez, and I work with. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can hear you, sir.
I work with an organization called Standard Chartered Bank. I'm a senior manager there in charge of information and cybersecurity, and I have been mandated by CyberAcon' to speak on cybersecurity challenges in the financial services industry. All the previous speakers have actually done a wonderful job in their presentations, very instructive, interesting, and incisive presentations they've done, every single one of them. And I will have to now take it forward from there. I thank them a lot for what they've done so far, and I also thank CyberAcon' for this for setting up this platform for this discussion we are having. It's there's no gain saying that cybersecurity is actually everyone's business. People should be sensitized. People should be made aware of their responsibilities with respect to cybersecurity, just like it is with any other security initiative, be it physical security, be it security of your assets, I mean physical assets. Same premium, the same attention should be given to cybersecurity. Now, going into the crux of why I'm here. So I have to give a bit of a background of why, of how cybersecurity became a big issue in the financial services industry. So I will start by saying that everything is rooted in technology and innovation, right? So with the massive technology and automation revolution, somebody mentioned that I think I heard somebody mention that we are in the fourth industrial revolution, right? And that fourth industrial revolution is based on information technology, is based on automation, is based on the information superhighway that we refer to as the internet, right? So this has also, this has enabled a whole lot of things to be done. People now have organizations and people have moved their storage and management and processing of critical and sensitive information and assets and resources to both tangible and non-tangible to the internet. Institutions, of course, have also joined that frenzy or that bandwagon, if I may say, and they have used automation and technology solutions to enable a whole lot of wonderful products and services. But of course, this has also made them vulnerable to cyber crimes and attacks. I also want to also provide a little definition of what the internet is, because when we talk about cyber security, we are talking about security, securing our information assets that are connected to the internet, which is the cyberspace, right? So the internet is a massive network that interconnects. Please, can we meet our distance, please? So the internet is a massive network and interconnection of computers with the purpose of sharing and processing of information amongst the interconnected or networked computers. Internet is an acronym for international network. So having said this, this technology and innovation has also brought about certain unwanted implications or consequences, right? Criminals have migrated or are even continue to migrating in droves from the typical I'll call it brick and mortar way of stealing and committing crime, like what we have in the physical world, to the internet, to the logical world, to now perpetrate their nefarious acts or activities. As we all know, criminals are always ingenious and daring in what they do, and they devote a lot of time and resources to perfect their acts. Thus, they are almost always one step ahead of security personnel most of the time, making the job of thwarting the attacks difficult, but of course not impossible. Cyber criminals are particularly attracted to financial institutions. Now, we're narrowing it down to financial institutions, which is where I am mandated to speak on. Cyber criminals are particularly attracted to financial institutions because of the perceived huge reward associated with compromising and stealing the assets of financial institutions. Now, these rewards could be anything from financial gain, which people have spoken about. Financial gain means having a financial reward for committing that cyber crime, to people just pranking people. attacking people just for the sake of prank, for fun. So activism. Now, when I say activism, I mean like people using cyber attack to prove a point, probably a social point. You know, like you have activists that are always trying to make a point, whether political point or social point. So they can also use cyber attacks to also make those points. We call them hacktivists, or we call that concept hacktivism. So these are activists that are cyber attackers, right? So other motives could be espionage. It could also be based on hatred. I just don't like this person. I want to make sure I bring the person down. I don't like this organization. I want to bring this organization down. So people could be inspired by hate. It could be intimidation, and that's also another motive. It could be also business competition. So you see, I want to demarket. I want to make sure that I completely ruin the reputation of my competitor. So I go there to probably attack them. Launch a cyber attack on them to create a bad image of them. Breach their data, deface their websites, all sorts of things. Make them to pay fine. Because of the breach that I have orchestrated. So you see, customers will now start seeing them in very bad light, and this is also one of the motives that people launch cyber attacks. Cyber warfare, these are state actors now. So you see here that US accusing Russia of launching cyber attacks on them. You can imagine, everyone remember the Hillary Clinton and Trump election process, where Hillary accused Russia of aiding and abetting and working in concert with Trump to breach her email and breach her email and expose certain information in her email, right? So these are also what we call cyber warfare, right? So the cybersecurity, by definition, is the security of information assets and resources against the compromise of confidentiality, integrity, and availability. This is normally called CIA. That's the concept of CIA. That's the triad of information and cybersecurity, really. So if you compromise, whether intentionally or unintentionally, any of these concepts, then you have breached the security of that particular asset. I don't want to go into what confidentiality and integrity and availability mean, but it may also be important. So confidentiality means when an information that is not supposed to get to someone that is not authorized, when he or she gets access to an information or an asset he's not supposed to get to, then the conversion of that information has been breached. Integrity means modification or destruction of an information. So when you now breach the information, when information is breached and somebody has access, let it be that he just has access. Let it not be that he can also modify the content of that information or even destroy that information. Then availability means that people that are supposed to have access to an information, they should always have that access to that information anytime they need it. So that is what we call availability. So these are the concept, the main pillars or triad of information and cybersecurity. The compromise could be, like I mentioned, intentional or unintentional. In the following slides, I'm going to show or project or portray some of the various impacts of cyber attacks on organizations, right? So here we have cybercrime is a growing threat. People have already spoken about threats. Threat that is anything that can exploit a vulnerability, right? Threat agents are those things that are now being used to do that exploitation, right? So Cybercrime is a growing threat to corporations and consumers who are increasingly adopting and dependent on mobile and digital technology to run their business and lives. So it is estimated globally that the cost of damage through cybercrime, for example, in 2015 was $3 trillion. In 2021, it's moved from $3 trillion to $6 trillion. So you can imagine. So it grew by 100%, right? 100% from 2015 to 2021, huge. So that is what organizations, countries, and whatever, agents, entities, people, human beings, lost as a result of cyber attacks, right? So, and there are different damages that organizations, entities can incur as a result of cyber attacks. One of them is financial losses. I mentioned that, right? When we say some people are motivated by financial gains, right? Then damage to reputation. That's also another loss you can suffer. Loss of data is also another loss you can suffer. Disruption to operations is also another damage or loss you can suffer. Regulatory fines is also another loss you can suffer, because these days, regulators do not have tolerance for organizations that do not protect their information assets and resources. So they have imposed very severe fines on organizations, particularly in the financial sector. The central bank, who is our chief regulator, has imposed a lot of fines on not meeting certain information security standards. So they've rolled out a whole plethora of information standards that banks must comply with, from ISO 27001 to PCI DSS to ISO 22301 to all sorts. So if you don't comply with any of these standards or frameworks, you'll be fined. And it's even made worse. If your customer data or any sensitive data is breached, you also pay fine. So you see, so this is also one a very good example of a very huge damage that an organization can suffer as a result of cyber attacks. In the following slide, you will see typical examples of fines that some organizations have suffered as a result of data breaches and all and their likes. So this year, this day reported that in the last, so the chief strategy officer of Deloitte has stated that Nigeria lost 5.5 trillion to fraud and cyber crimes in the last 10 years. That is huge. That is huge. I can remember as at 3 years ago, our total budget, annual budget in Nigeria was less than 5 trillion. I think it was about 4 trillion. So you can imagine our total budget as a threat being stolen or lost in the last 10 years. And I'm sure it will continue to grow. So this is an example of damage and loss that can be suffered. And this is now speaking to Nigeria specifically. So 12 months of cyber attacks. So in the last 12 months, starting from September 2020, these are examples of organizations that have suffered serious cyber attacks and the consequences that they suffered. So we have Citrix, we have an Indonesian fintech data breach, we have South Korean supply chain attack. Somebody mentioned supply chain. So in the previous presentation, how it is important that your third party that you deal with, you ensure that they meet certain minimum or baseline cybersecurity controls, so that because the truth is that if they are breached, invariably you will suffer. If their security is breached, any third party or partner that you deal with in the course of your business, if they are breached, you that has employed them or employed their services will suffer. So these are some of the organizations that have suffered huge cyber attacks in the last 12 months up until August 2021, and some of the monetary losses that they also incurred, right? I don't want to start reading through them. This is just a dashboard that you guys can just see, right? So in 2020, 2020 is the year of cyber attacks, and it is actually not primarily, but really primarily, the increase is because of the pandemic. So a whole lot of people, organizations, moved their office, practically, their office to the internet. So you can imagine that. So that exposed them to a whole lot of cyber attacks. So 2020, and has also continued in 2021, these are a year of huge cyber attacks, both in terms of value of the what in terms of currency that is being lost, or monetary loss, and also in terms of information that is lost as well. So regulatory impact. I mentioned regulatory fines as one of the losses or damages that organizations can suffer.
All right, Mr.
Right?
Ekochi, please begin to round up because of our time. Thank you.
Okay, so these are some of the losses some organizations incurred, right? So I have to rush here now. So Google, 15 million euro. Marriott International. Marriott is a hotel chain, 125 million USD. British Airways, 230 million USD. Equifax, 505 million USD. Impact of cyber crimes. So there are direct costs, there are indirect costs, there are damage to your brand, there are regulatory sanctions. I mentioned this, customer fraud, leadership changes, right? Major value, class action lawsuit, customer business redress. Top cybersecurity challenges specifically with financial institutions. One is how dynamic threats are. So the threat environment and threat actors continue to change, and it is very, very, very challenging meeting up with these threats. Identifying themselves is also a very huge task, and let alone trying to mitigate their impact. So this is the threats are quite dynamic, and they are universal in nature. So they are everywhere. So that's a huge challenge. There's customer expectation, compliance, regulation. They also add pressure. So customer expects you to do the impossible. They keep demanding for changes in services. They want their life to be easy. The regulators also come up with a whole lot of regulation. They churn out regulation upon regulation that you must meet. So this adds pressure to organizations in terms of cybersecurity, right? So institutions face very strict expectations from regulators and consumers alike. Regulators require that financial institutions meet an array of compliance standards. I mentioned PCI DSS, I mentioned ISO 27001, I mentioned ISO 27301, which is BCP. There are a whole lot. So organizations are required to meet all this. So it's a challenge. Then there's also the third-party security risk. I had mentioned that. Somebody else had mentioned that this is a very huge risk. A lot of cyber security attacks emanate from this. Organizations and people or individuals should watch out for this. You can protect your organization, implement wonderful controls, but if you do not also ensure that the organization you deal with are also protected, then you will also be in trouble. So insider threat is the biggest challenge we have, because the truth is that an insider has already breached your firewall, your intrusion prevention, whatever, all your layered security. Somebody mentioned layered security. An insider is already inside. So if he's already inside, you can imagine if the person, first of all, temperament or is not properly trained, you can imagine the havoc that insider will wreak. So the organization should ensure, first of all, they conduct proper due diligence on whoever that they are recruiting, and they train them properly, and continue to monitor the activities always. Thank you very much. And I will entertain any question you may want to pose. I have to make this as short as possible.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Ekochi. We really appreciate you for that wonderful presentation. Okay, we have some question. I think we have a question from Mr. Sylvester. So, Mr. Sylvester, over to you, please.
Thank you, Mr. Yeah, from your slide, you made mention of leadership.
Sorry, I can't hear you well. I don't know if it's only me.
Yeah. Okay, sir. I said you made mentions of leadership during your presentation, in which I believe
leadership.
Yes, okay. Leadership.
Yeah.
Change of leadership.
Yes.
So, in which I believe is part of the reason why cybersecurity, cybercrime is much more in our society today. Yeah. So, what can we do? The moment because many of those leadership that we have in our company, in our organization, many of them don't even want to hear anything about cybersecurity, because most especially when you bring their budget, that this is the budget we are having for cybersecurity, they will just look at it and say, where do you think we can get this kind of money? Please take it away. No, but by the time that thing happens, that is the breach, it happens, they will now begin to look for so much cost. To mitigate it. So what do you think we can do when it comes to leadership, a change of leadership, and even a new leadership coming in? What do you think we can do to curb the monarchs of leadership and high cost of breach in the cybersecurity domain?
Okay, thank you very much for that very important question. Leadership is at the core of the success of any cybersecurity program. So if a leader or the senior management does not support your cybersecurity program, that it has failed from the word go. But there are two ways to mitigate this. One is, as a cybersecurity manager or officer, or the CISO, as the case may be, you need to be strategic. You need to be a business. You need to think like the business for you to get the sponsorship or the buy-in or the support of senior management. So whatever cybersecurity program you're implementing, you must tie it to the value the business will derive, how it's going to impact positively to their profit and loss account. What I mean, their bottom line, right? How does that impact their balance sheets? You tell them, okay, I give you an example. You tell them, okay, you see, we are having, this is just hypothetical figures that I'm going to quote here, right? We're having 1,000 cyber attacks in a month. And in that 1,000, we are making a loss of, say, 50 million every month. You tell them, if I implement an intrusion prevention system, I will bring down the attacks from 1,000 to, say, 50. And the loss to say from 50 million to say 5 million. If you present it to you, that's a good business case, right? If you present it to senior management that way, they will buy it. I am almost sure that they will buy that idea. That is one. Secondly is regulators also have a big role to play. Thankfully, in the industry I work in, it is mandated for banks to implement an array of cybersecurity standards and framework. So the CEO or the management, they don't have any option than to support that, except they want to lose their license of operating in that industry. So one is the CISO or the information security manager should be able to relate and talk to the senior management to get their support in the language that they understand, which is the business language. Secondly, is that the government, I'm talking about regulator. Regulator is also government, should also support these cybersecurity initiatives by mandating it on the players in that industry to make sure that they implement certain minimum requirements for cybersecurity, right? So I hope I have answered your question. I hope I've answered your question.
Thank you very much. You have really answered. Thank you. While I hand over to the host, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much for that session, Mr. Sylvester. Okay, quick announcement, please, for all the panelists so far that has presented, kindly share your, all the speakers so far that has presented, please kindly share your PowerPoint slide via our chat, like privately. Okay, so please kindly share your slide. Okay, why also the panelists should please be preparing for their session. Okay, so why we bring on board another speaker for the day, which is no other but Dr. Francis. Okay, Dr. Francis, please, I hope you are online. Hello, Dr. Francis.
Yes, I am. Good afternoon.
All right, good afternoon, ma. You're welcome on board, ma. Okay, please hold on while I share your profile with all our listeners this afternoon.